The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
With the ButtKicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. ButtKicker, the future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by ButtKicker, are ready to race.
From the land down under to the Wolverine State, the Lionheart IndyCar Series touches down for the second of its Triple Crown races in 2021. It's been a dominant season for the Lionheart King Adam Blocker, and he's continued that run last time out from Phillip Island with his 7th victory in 13 races as he chases a 4th consecutive IndyCar title. Today though, we go racing for 500 miles with double points on the line. Could the title take a swing here on the high banks? This is Michigan, and this is the ButtKicker US 500. Hello and welcome back to RaceBot TV and coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX. makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined by Justin Prince and Lorenzo Bonder in a three-man booth for today's second Triple Crown race of the season. Live timing is always powered by our partners at ATVO. You can follow along by heading to racebot.tv/Indy to find your favorite team and drivers. Let's dive straight into our ButtKicker pre-race show. And Justin, what a race we had from Phillip Island, but attentions turned back stateside and attentions turned to the high banks at Michigan. Not necessarily high banks when you consider it from a stock car perspective, but given the speeds that we're going to see here today, it is going to be a very chaotic race. A very interesting start because temperature's relatively hot. It'll cool off as we go through the day.
It's expected to be a very intense race, to say the very least. The track conditions are running more than 120 degrees, those track temperatures around Michigan International Speedway today. But the main thing to keep in mind, especially with how important this race is it's a Triple Crown event. If you want to be able to put yourself in full contention for a championship, you need to do well in these races. You cannot afford to be involved in the potential carnage that can come through 250 laps, 500 miles in Michigan.
And Lorenzo, I mean, we're working our way through the second half of the season here now. Michigan is a fast track. It's also one fraught with danger. We've seen that in the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship when it visited this very venue a couple of months ago.
Hey, it was more with some cautions here and there. Of course, a much faster race over there, and here you have 250 laps to be concerned with. So I don't think it will be just as aggressive as we saw in the Open Series, but there are a few things that we're going to mention during the broadcast that made this race a little bit more exciting than the IndyCar Open one.
Well, to finish first you must finish, and I think that's very much the name of the game when it comes to today's action. Let's take a look at these drivers' standings presented by ButtKicker, and we are starting to count the drop weeks in our championship, but at the end of the day, 7 victories, 13 races. Adam Blocker now almost 70 points clear of Connor Harrington. Justin, for Henry Bennett, Ryan Otis, Andrew Kinsella, they're really close, just 18 points separating that battle for third.
It's been very tight all season, it seems, for about third all the way back. You can even include to around 7th in some cases, depending on how the races flow and depending on the strengths of drivers like Chin and Taylor. But there is a lot of potential for change, keep in mind today, with this being at Michigan with the Triple Crown event. If you want to be able to hold on to those positions, you have to perform well today, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of intense fighting between Bennett, Otis, Kinsella as a result, with those drivers not wanting to bleed any time and not want to bleed any strategies, especially when it comes to those points. And for Connor Harrington, this race you have to put a star next to, Arjuna. You want to do well here and hope bad luck goes the way of Adam Blocker if you want to close up the deficit.
Oh, absolutely. And for Blocker, important not just because double points, but we mentioned it last time. West Coast swing coming up for the NTT IndyCar Series. Blocker will be on his duties as a trackside engineer. Here's a look then at your team standings presented by HyperX. And the private label Team Hype machine, Lorenzo, has been well and truly on display. Adrenaline Motorsports Red have slowly closed that gap up, but for the private label Team Hype, double points today. Jason Brophy very much prefers the ovals. He won this past Monday at the Pocono Raceway in the aforementioned iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. I'm expecting a strong performance from him today.
I'm expecting a good performance out of him and everybody in the private label Team Hype, but I think this is a very good race for our gentlemen to come closer and grab those points from private label. I think every point they can snatch from the private label team will be very appreciated. Maybe not take the lead, but it will be a very good contend nevertheless.
And so this is the team's championship. Let's talk a bit about the rookie standings presented by ButtKicker. Henry Bennett consistent on both the ovals and the road courses. That is the hallmark of the NTT IndyCar Series, the hallmark of the Lionheart IndyCar Series as well. Matt Taylor has had impressive campaign, not just in the IndyCars, the Retro Series where he's leading the championship. He's taken 3 victories in the last 4 races in the Lotus 79s, and Jason Brophy, with a bit of struggles last time from the Phillip Island racetrack, has now dropped to 3rd. Mike Rasmussen in the mix as well. Lionel Calisto completes the top 5. Aaron Morgan in 6th. I mean, it's a rookie class, Justin, filled with driving talent.
And all of these drivers have been at one point been amongst the contenders for race victories. For example, take Jason Brophy a few weeks back. Texas comes to mind, where he elected to say, you know what, let's try tires. One more lap, he might have came away with a victory that might see him up inside the top 2, instead of in 3rd position for the rookie standings. So many close calls for these drivers, though, throughout the campaign. With the race such as today, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of fluctuation, of course, today. But essentially, you won't have to expect a lot of these drivers, especially drivers with momentum like Fowler and company, to have a shot today.
Let's talk a bit about the series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. Lorenzo, it is the 9th season, the 8th year of the Lionheart Racing Series. With the Solara IR18, there is a custom fixed setup in effect with almost $9,000 in prizes, and this being the second of the Triple Crown event, it is great to see there's an additional prize pool on offer. We're looking at a ButtKicker Simulation or Gamer 2 kit and $75 for the winner here today.
And that's very cool, and that's a good incentive for all drivers to gun for the win. And looking at the practice table that I've been looking here in the server, everybody's close to one another, so there isn't an odds-on favorite for us at this current moment. So we should have a really good race in our hands for 250 laps.
And so now let's talk about the event details. It's a return to a familiar venue for Lionheart competition. Familiar because in Season 1 there are multiple splits, so not 9 races, we're looking at 10 over the course of Lionheart competition. Only one person has a chance of becoming a 2-time winner, though, here in the Wolverine State. That is Christopher Indiana's own. Be very difficult task for him to do that. Also, interestingly, Justin, Paul has never visited HyperX Victory Lane. The race has only ended under caution twice. 0 cautions back in Season 3. The closest finish is a photo finish at just 1.5 hundredths of a second. There's so much intrigue around this race. SageCam, the defending race winner, not competing tonight.
And the reason, keep in mind, that it's very difficult to win from the pole at Michigan International Speedway is this is a track that is very heavily focused on the draft and slipstream down the straightaways to be able to pass by one another and draft with one another. So there is the strong chance where even if you're the pole sitter, even if you're the race leader for the last lap, you might not be able to hold on to it down the back straightaway, let alone the run up down the front straightaway to the checkered flag. It's going to be intriguing, though, to see how the incidents fare out today, because there have been times where you may see big ones in the heart of the pack as a result of heavy battling. You may also see the mix of races where it can be very calm with drivers trying to save fuel and strategize their pull races out.
And Lorenzo, you just pointed it out in our private chat. The Lionheart Indy 500, the HyperX Indy 500 was another race that coming into 2021, we had never seen Pole make their way to victory lane, taking the checkered flag. Of course, Adam Blocker did that in dominant fashion. Be interesting to see if we see that here tonight with qualifying underway.
Yeah, we have qualifying underway. It's going to be an interesting one to how to break this one down, but I think this is a dual-layered race. I think more than Indy, because you have so many different field strategies to go forward, especially in the pack. So again, we cannot pick the odds-on favorite over here because the race can change in the blink of an eye, and it is so much different than Indianapolis that it's complicated. You know, I don't think that Paul might be able to win here, but I've been proven wrong so many times that everything can go wrong in just in a split second.
And we're not letting you say anything nice about the drivers because we know what the commentator's curse can do. And it's interesting you mentioned the fuel strategy, Lorenzo, because anywhere from 38 to 39 laps when you run by yourself in clean air, but with fuel maps, which you can use here on the IR18, bump that into Mix 5, you're looking at 42 laps. In the thick of the pack, you're looking at 46 laps here, Justin.
it means there are so many different strategies that can be wide open, and it's why I mentioned you may see drivers try and work together in the draft and maintain that strategy call, because in theory, the least amount of pit stops is the one that helps you get to the checkered flag. And we've seen so many times in Lionheart history, even this year in the multiple different series that Lionheart sanctions, that if you don't get the strategy right or time out the cautions right to which pit stop time is the best time, you get caught red-handed usually. It was seen as well with the Speedway series when they came to Michigan, where the drivers who saved the field to get to the end were the ones who took the checkered.
So, less than 60 seconds left on the qualifying clock. Adam Blocker all the way to the apron. What's it going to be the second time around for Blocker? It's second fastest. It's a 32.735. Goes for a bit of a trip after that. Not such a concern for him. Here comes his main championship rival. Connor Harrington has built up his speed. He is going for his second flying lap this time around. And with 30 seconds left to go, qualifying is not necessarily important to get you pole position here, Lorenzo, but it gets you out of the thick of the mid-pack, where we are expecting carnage as Henry Bennett on provisional pole position.
A provisional pole position, 1,000 of a second faster, but now then Robert Malecka, the previous winner in the Speedway Series, actually grabs pole position out of Henry Bennett. So it's going to be an interesting one. You really don't want to be in the back, despite this race not only requiring a lot of usage of the weight checker.
Here we go then. It is a second pole position in the Lionheart IndyCar Series for Robert Malecka. Let's take a look at our ButtKicker starting grid in the Wolverine State. .32.668, that nets Robert Malecka III, his second IndyCar pole position. On his outside, Henry Bennett in the British Racing Green will try and take his inaugural Lionheart IndyCar Series win. Alexis Newsom, a revelation in the Speedway Series, carries that momentum here to the high banks of Michigan. She'll be inside of Series newcomer Phil Krause, extremely impressive on his debut just a couple of weeks ago. Brian Beard inside of our defending series champion. Adam Blocker has traveled over 1,800 miles back to his home. Looks to try and continue his run with double points on the line. Connor Harrington, Andrew Kinsella, plenty of IndyCar experience on row number 4 with the reigning Lionheart Retro Series champion Ryan Otis lining up inside of Chris Fowler to complete our top 10. Brian Carey, Stefan Larkamp, 11th and 12th position. Brian Carey hoping for no technical issues here today with the Muscle Man in 13th, Mike Rigney in the 00 alongside to complete row number 7. Tyler Groff, Tony Shaw in 15th and 16th with Matt Taylor and Michael O'Brien with a brand new livery to boot, 17th and 18th positions. Matt Houston and Adam Frazier complete the top 20 with Barrett Rolfe just missing out in 21st spot. Watch for the 33 car to carve his way up through the field. Ken Hacker, Joshua Chin, Jason Brophy, 22nd through 24th. The private label Team Hype Machine has some work to do with Chin and Brophy starting well and truly in the thick of the pack. Mike Rasmus, Lionel Callisto, 25th and 26th. No qualifying times being set here with Luis Gonzalez Nunez, James Krahula, Scott Holmes, Aaron Morgan rounding out our top 30 and our field here today. As always, we have onboard cameras to go take a look at, so let's walk you through the featured ones to start with. First up, with the ButtKicker on board as the field begins to roll itself off a pit road, it's Tony Showen. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com.
With the Graphics Esports onboard camera, it's Tyler Graff. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com.
Chris Fowler has the Chris Fowler Racing on board. Join Chris on his sim racing journey through his live streams. Visit Fowler Racing on Twitch to see more. That'll be a little nice dual screen experience for you here today, and you are ready to watch racing from Michigan. Let's get some very quick predictions under our belt. Let's start with you, JP.
It's going to be very difficult to predict who will come out in front for this one, but based on some of the track record and some of the experience seen at these types of events, I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like Adam Blocker come away with the checkered flag. Again, the reason I say Blocker, as predictable as it may seem, he has a lot of pressure on his way. He can get the nailed strategy to get Lorenzo.
I'm gonna put Ashley wrench in the mix. Newsom.
Oh, I'm going to go with Malechka the 30. Of course, won when the Speedway Series visited Michigan in what was a fuel mileage race. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the second Triple Crown event of the year. This is the ButtKicker US 500. We are racing in the Wolverine State. Looks like the Canadian Andrew Kinsella having some technical issues, but at the front of the field, the Brit Henry Bennett dives his way to the race lead. It will be Bennett, Malechka the 3rd, Newsom 1, 2, and 3. Beard and Kraus complete the top 5. Kraus is side by side with that silver machine of Brian Beard to complete the first lap. It got dicey in the mid-pack though, Lorenzo, as here comes Beard to the inside.
Yeah, he got diced because some other drivers checked up right in the middle of the field and kind of bunched up one another. I nearly saw 3 wide going to turn number 1. Right around P20, so everybody now settled in one bit, but still very frantic start over here.
What did I say about Barrett Rolfe, Justin? He is already +7 from where he started, looking now to crack the top 15. Meanwhile, though, at the front, they're almost 3 wide coming off the turn 4.
An eventful start to this race for a majority of the drivers, but as expected, once you get up to that race lead, it's about defending, trying to hold on the momentum along that high line up against the walls, but also being able to get the proper cornering throughout the entries and exits. Because if you run towards the bottom line and you're stuck on the bottom line for corner X, that can lose you some momentum. But already some shuffling up towards the race lead. Beard's going for it, Arjuna.
He's down to the inside, put the number 5 car to the race lead. Adam Blocker is being swarmed by the pack. His main championship rival has slung it down his inside. Connor Harrington now works at his teammate, Philip Kraus. Pink versus blue. Private Label Team Hype versus Private Label Team Hype. Brian Beard +4 on the day so far. As this is what we expected, Lorenzo. Very racy to begin with. As there's our first spinner. Yellow flag immediately comes out. It's Matt Taylor in the 8 machine having some issues.
Yeah, just look at that. I think we got some connection issues. Maybe regarding Kinsella over here that was partially cause of all this, that got the drivers checked up on the top side of the track. Somebody hit the wall, and then Matt Taylor just got the worst end.
Let's go ahead and take a look then at our first RaceBot TV replay on today's action. Let's take a look from the aerial look, and tell you what, actually, let's jump on board with Matt Taylor as he comes through. There you can see in front the chaos has already started. Taylor goes to the inside and then just gets a little bit loose, and it might actually be a self-spin there, Justin.
Yeah, but part of that there was the checkup on that top line, like Renzo was talking about, that caused that evasive move to the bottom line, because Andrew Kinsella had been warned on the starting grid that he had a technical issue throughout the majority of the first couple laps, and that caused the stack up. He tried to move to the bottom, and then of course we see right there Taylor also got a little bit of help once he started to lose that back end, as he had to go from essentially the middle to top to the bottom of the racetrack to make sure he avoided the trouble.
Yeah, there you can see Andrew Kinsella blinking in and out of existence. That's not just that's not easy, to say the very least, Lorenzo. That is just heart-in-mouth moment for some of these drivers. Let's go ahead and take a look at it one more time. Let's ride on board with Tyler Graf.
Yeah, let's see Tyler Graf, and you can see a little bit of a scare. I would be scared as well trying to make any moves when you have a driver blinking. And you can see right there, he's going to be a little bit scared, and he takes evasive action, and all hell breaks loose after that.
All hell breaks loose, I think, is a bit of an understatement. Matt Taylor, the unfortunate one, and, well, the field is now down on pit road. Not just a couple of cars here, but a vast majority of the field. It looks like 17th on back is down. There you can see right side of the shot. Stefan Larkamp, Tyler Graf, Tony Schowen, Michael O'Brien, Matt Taylor, Adam Frazier, Mike Razmas, Joshua Chin. The list goes on and on. And this is an interesting call, guys, because a 250-lap race, we were looking at an estimate of anywhere from 225 to 235 for the final pit stop of today's action. Only lap 6, but we know with a potential almost 50-lap fuel window here, anything you can do on pit lane is going to be vital, Justin.
It absolutely is, because even if it ends up getting those longer runs, it's good to have that extra fuel in the bank to be able to break things on down in case you get up to that range of an extra 7 laps per run, because it allows you flexibility. And it shouldn't be surprised to see majority of the drivers who are up towards the back of the field say, you know what, why not just get a little bit fresher tires? And keep in mind as well, Arjuna, we've seen in the past at this racetrack in particular, even with the custom fixed setups, these cars can get pretty tight as the runs go on if you overuse the car with the aero wash. So it allows you that extra little bit of grip for later on in the run potentially as well.
Absolutely. Lights still on the pace car, so at least one additional lap under pacing we will have. First caution on the day. It's a race that's seen all sorts of strategies play out. I mean, the initial races back in Season 1, when we had 2 splits of competition, 11 cautions, 10 cautions, and those were only an 84-lap event. Since then, it's been a little bit cleaner. The last 4 years has seen 2 cautions, 4 cautions before the first 500-mile race here from Michigan, just 1 caution 12 months ago. So who knows, we may get a repeat of that one. 1 caution very early on, and 12 months ago, Lorenzo, it was also tough race, I think, for some of the drivers at the front. We saw 69 lead changes over the course of 250 laps.
It's going to be really interesting one, how we're actually going to do over here. We might be able to even break that number. I think we had at least 4 or 5 lead changes over here in this start of the race. So we can definitely see that being broken depending how the race goes over here. But you said strategy is at least going to be key. Minimal 5.5 pit stops. So let's see if we go off course 45 laps.
Looks like the Canadian Andrew Kinsella might just have those technical issues resolved. One of the newest members of RaceBot TV, also builds the custom fixed setups for the series. It was great having him on the broadcast with the Speedway competition and just getting that insight into what happens when you build a setup, not just for yourself, but the entire field, getting them comfortable, getting them ready to go. And we are ready to go back to green here in the ButtKicker US 500. The pace car is down onto the safety of pit road. Brian Beard picks up the throttle, gets a bit of a jump on Henry Bennett. The 2 factory-back machines will try and attack Bennett as we come down in towards turn number 1, but it's a very orderly restart until you get to about Andrew Kinsella. Mike Rigney, Matt Houston, they're scrapping side by side as Ryan Otis and Philip Kraus duke it out in towards turn number 2. Adam Blocker now sits in 8th position, down 2 from where he started, but all things good. Onto the back straightaway, Justin, we get back to the action.
Nice and clean and orderly now, and now it becomes the matter of how these drivers try and play it. Will we see the back and forth try to once again come into play where drivers want to lead laps and get some clean air on their front wings? Or do they want to do what we're seeing right now, get themselves lined up in a drafting train and try to break away a little bit? Because keep in mind, you battle too much, you can lose a decent amount of time as a result of the squabbling. So it looks like at the very least, drivers going a little bit more calmer to start off this run at the very least.
Connor Harrington got a great run, though, down the back straightaway in the draft of Alexis Newsom. He looks to the inside of that number 53 machine. He slides up the track, but Newsom's still there. Does that open the door for Ryan Otis as we come across the start-finish line? Otis just a little bit too far behind. I think Harrington might actually still be attacking as we dive down into turn 1.
Yeah, and the one thing we're going to be noticing over here for the first few laps might be 2-3 lines to be used over here in Michigan, especially that inside line, because you have more grip to use with that car. It's still cold, so you can actually be more aggressive in it. But I think during the latter portion of the set, maybe the high line might be the preferred one to take, and might be the only line you might have actually grip during this race. Then you can actually take advantage of the draft and then go to the inside. But other than that, really good restart so far.
Connor Harrington to the lead in a race that is crucial for his championship hopes. He gets past Bennett, he gets past Beard, the private label Team Hype car, to the pointy end of the field. Barrett Rolfe continues his charge, by the way, already now sniffing a top 10 as Ryan Otis, Robert Malechka side by side, just for the 4th and 5th positions. Top 2 breaking away very slightly as Brian Beard has pulled away. Are we going to see swap drafting here between the 2 race leaders, JP?
That's actually a good point, because if you think back to some of the races this season, in particular the Speedway side for Michigan, there was the effect of swap drafting that work fairly effectively. And because of how quick they're going just about the whole way around of more than 220 miles an hour, if you're able to time it up right with enough squabbling, it might work out pretty decently and help each other with that strategy. Don't be surprised to see it Harrington down the front, Beard down the back with a pattern that's starting to form up.
Adam Blocker side by side with Kraus. These two had a battle for the ages from Phillip Island a couple of weeks ago from the land down under. Adam Blocker on the black mark tires at the end of the race, able to take advantage. It's the one great thing about this Dallara IR18 on this iRacing service. Multiple tire compounds that come into play when we go road course racing. Not the case here as we head to the high banks, as Blocker now trying to regain that track position that he lost. Right behind them, the Muscle Man and Barrett Rolfe side by side. The Muscle Man's going to lose not one but two positions as Chris Fowler around the outside.
And it's easy for you to get a double whammy over here depending on circumstances, right? And but it's one of those things about pack racing that you're going to get that you cannot get yourself affected in it. You might lose one or even two, but again, just because the draft is so strong over here, you can cash that back pretty easily and still save fuel. Like we were saying, fuel mileage is going to be important right here as Blocker's on the inside.
Oh, and he almost runs into the rear end of, I think that was Alexis Newsom. Newsom loses a position to Phil Kraus. Blocker is going to get swarmed. He drops to the edge of the top 10 as Harrington and Beard still swapping back and forth. Rolfe tries to continue his charge as we ride around on board with the Chris Fowler on board. Newsom gets a little bit loose on the exit of turn number 2, opens the door for Rolfe to come around the outside, and here comes Fowler too, Justin.
It's getting pretty snaky amongst this mix of the pack, to say the very least, and you can see that's the issue with some of the grip. Once you get about 10-15 laps of the tires, is it gets a little bit more and more tricky to run around or below that first seam compared to the fresher tires. So you need to be careful there, Mark, and now everyone's starting to get themselves single-filed out as a result of all this shuffling, and some of them all the way up to the wall, as you were alluding to, Renzo, earlier as well, to try and get runs.
I'm not someone who likes running to the wall. I've done some oval racing, not to the extent of some of these drivers. I just get very, very uncomfortable. Someone who is not uncomfortable, though, Barrett Rolfe, plus 15, now working on the Retro Series champion. Side by side, I don't think Rolfe has the momentum. Phil Kraus might regain that advantage, but what a start to this race, Lorenzo, from Barrett Rolfe in the Ascari Autosport 33 car.
Yeah, what a start for Barrett Rolfe. I think he wants to try to have another Triple Crown win. Remember, he had one back in the Speedway Series at Indianapolis with a very dominating race, to say the least. But over here with a really good start, and the Rolfe Express might get another position right now on Ryan Otis on the inside.
We jump on board with your ButtKicker on board, and Tony Shaw in the lead of the cars that came down onto pit road. He's in 15th. Tyler Groff, another car on fresh rubber just behind him. Matt Houston, Ken Hacker then separates them from Joshua Chin, who was the next car to dive down onto pit road. Mike Rigney, who led some laps from the Worldwide Technology Raceway this past Thursday in the Retro Series, gets passed by Shawan. Next target for the 31 car will be his teammate Andrew Kinsella, who does appear to have those internet issues resolved as Tyler Groff diamonds the corner, slides it up the track, gets his way up into the top 15. It is still swapping out front. Brian Beard, Connor Harrington have a bit of a buffer over Henry Bennett, Barrett Rolfe, who is now up to 4th position. But this is where, Justin, the fuel-saving game comes into the mix. We've got a 15-lap fuel run from when that last caution came out, and we were saying that 46 laps might be something you can look at doing in the thick of the pack. So the longer you go, the more you open up the strategy game later in the race.
And we were talking about this a little bit too offhand, where you might have the opportunity, if you're able to save enough fuel for later on in this race, to take a little less fuel for the final pit stop. So it's all a big mind game, so to speak, of can you strategize yourself to that right window? And it's pretty clear that for a majority of these drivers, they're just wanting to stay in a line, work together, save the fuel outside the front row with the swap drafting. For Barrett Rolfe, I'm surprised he didn't take a couple opportunities to move up into that line already. He seems more committed to me, Arjuna, that he wants to still try and get some positions if it's possible, but he's going to have to find a hole soon if he wants to think big picture, since it's not like the Speedway Series where he went from the back of the field to the race lead in 6 laps. It's been more methodical, and he's been burning up a lot of his stuff doing so this time.
And Lorenzo, I mean, you there's two trains of thought when it comes to inside versus outside, right? There's some drivers who just prefer taking the shortest distance around the track, but especially at these speeds, you'll heat up the tires just a little bit more as Rolf finally gets himself back into line. And yes, because it is warm here today, I think tire life is going to be a lot more important, at least at the start of the race, than what it's going to be later on.
Yeah, it's going to be more important. You're going to be brushing up those tires, even though it's not one of the tracks that you're going to be killing your tires constantly. But of course, if you push way too much, lap by lap by lap, I think what Rolf did was very smart. Maybe take 2-3 laps where you can actually brush off and still be within some relatively good time. Then cool off the tires on the outside, and if you have another shot, go for at it. I think he's going to go for it. But that's pretty much the strategy. You really don't want to waste those tires too much because you're going to be a sitting duck for a lot of portions.
He got on past Otis for the time being, but just loses that momentum as he dives through the middle of the corner. There comes that run from the 95 car. Otis should get the position back. Take a look at our track conditions here. We are using Celsius, not Fahrenheit. It is 30 degrees on the track, in the air I should say, 46 on the track. That is very, very warm. But Justin, we are racing currently at the virtual 4:23 p.m. here in Michigan. It is going to get so much cooler come the end of this race.
Keep in mind that temperature has already dropped a little bit since qualifying, so this is going to continue to get cooler and cooler, especially once you get cloud cover across the racetrack. You can already tell just a little bit with some of the lighting that there's little pockets of clouds just above the circuit that are affecting the track temperature just that extra little bit. So by about 5 p.m. in sim time, I'm expecting that to be at least 3-4 degrees lower, possibly, for some of these competitors, as we see from the heart of the pack. Everyone continuing to maintain the patience for most of these positions and try and get some clean air on the front wings by changing up the lines in the corners.
We're on board with the Canadian Brian Carey, and I did say that Carey has had his own technical issues, not just his teammate Andrew Kinsella, but Brian Carey is well and truly hoping he doesn't have any virtual reality issues in his headset here today. Let's see if he can get through 500 miles of action as Adam Blocker, his teammate, just up the road. Looks to the inside then of Alexis Newsom. Two cars that have struggled here on the long run. Still out front, they are going back and forth, but it's looking a lot tougher in this mid-pack to get something done. And as Alexis Newsom tries to go around the outside of Chris Fowler. For Blocker, Lorenzo, I think patience is going to be the name of the game now. He's not finished lower than 5th position since September of 2020 in the IndyCar series, but he is looking good for the championship. He knows that double points will be crucial here today.
He knows, and I don't think he is feeling a lot of pressure right now because he knows it is the start of a race. We know that Blocker is a mastermind strategist, so I don't think he's feeling any pressure of trying to move up the chains. He's just using the fuel mileage to his advantage right now. Maybe we're going to see that aggressive side of Blocker that we normally see in shorter races, maybe through the final distance of the track, where he probably will want to move up a few spots in the track, but still, we barely reached 10% of this race, so let's keep going.
There's still a long, long way to go, and looking rearwards from Jason Brophy, he's got his teammate, the King of Chins, right behind him. Tell you what, that race spot sticker not giving him that horsepower buff that he needs right now, because Justin, I mean, we're talking about a team's championship that was separated by what, almost 200 points coming into this one. For Brophy and for Chin to be riding around 21st and 22nd, I don't know if they're just playing the cautious game right now and trying to stay out of potential trouble, or if they're just struggling right now in the dirty air, because I don't know how comfortable I would be feeling at this point, knowing that for Bennett, Carey, and Kinsella, who have had some inconsistent runs over the course of this calendar year, they're all looking at potential top 10 finishes.
Yeah, this is an intriguing start, to say the very least, from the majority of the private label Team Hype machines, because it seems like there's the two trains of thought. Harrington and Kraus had good track position from the get-go, so they've elected to go in full charge mode for the most part, with Harrington trying to take command of the race lead and get as many lead laps as possible. But when it comes to Brophy and Chin, keep in mind, they did not qualify well at all, if not, in some cases, put in a time. So they're essentially in that call of, okay, we can try and be patient, try and think big picture here, just wait for things to settle on down, because keep in mind, Brophy, it seems, at the very least, wants to make some moves. Matt Houston, for example, he's been trying to take side-by-side a couple times. Chin, meanwhile, he hasn't really taken those same chances that Brophy has been trying to take. So at this moment, I'm not really panicked because there's still plenty of time to race, Arjun. We've seen, if you want, with a timely enough caution in a restart, you might be able to get the same situation as Barrett Wolff to get back into the top 10. So in our words, you just need to be able to position yourself to be there at the end of the race. That's my main focal point, Arjun, on that.
And of course, Chin returning from a race suspension after what we saw, the incident at the end of the Silverstone Grand Prix. I still don't exactly have the right words for what we saw, to be completely honest. I was in utter disbelief as instant classic that was written into the history books had an unsavory turn at the end of that race. Adam Blocker victorious. Let's take a look, though, at our Sim Experience driver profile, because we've learned over the course of 2021 that even when drivers are in good positions, things can change just at the snap of a fingers. Brian Beard has been controlling portions of this race now, Justin, and I mean 78 starts, 25 top 10s. His best finish ever, second at Gateway. That came almost 2 years ago, but 2 pole positions to his name. It's a driver that we know can really show it up on the ovals.
Especially when it comes to Michigan, because I've seen him in the Dallar's 2009 chassis in particular be a dominant force at this track. He knows how to maneuver the draft. He knows how to be able to get himself to the front. And it seems whenever he's in a Triple Crown in general, Arjuna, he just drives the best we've seen him all season. He likes to live up to the expectations and raise his performances for these types of races, it seems, knowing how valuable they are. And you can tell there's the hunger there from Brian Beard to be able to try and keep command of the race. He was in the similar situation, too, with Indianapolis as well, keep in mind, because he was among the drivers in the lead pack, too, earlier on this year.
Bit of separation starting to form between some of the groups of cars. We definitely have a separation. The top 25 separated by 6 seconds. The gap between Aaron Morgan and now James Grahula, who's returning to the IndyCar Series, almost 3 full seconds. So 26 through 30th still trying to close the gap and use the draft to close it on up, but 35 laps into this one, we are getting towards that crucial number. Anywhere from 40 to 46 laps is that fuel window, Lorenzo, and with 1 caution on the day, maybe only 10 laps away from the first dives onto pit road, and the first time we'll see cars trying to make it down onto pit road under green flag conditions.
Yeah, we're approaching that margin right now. We barely had a good start that we can actually count for fuel, so we might be able to see the drivers going maybe lap 48, 49 for their pit stops if they go all the way, of course. But it's going to be an interesting, busy pit stop for especially the top half of the field and see where they're going to be lined up after that, because we know from the Speedway Series, it does break the pack a little bit. We're not going to see so much like a train of 5, 6, 7 cars. It's going to be a little bit of an interesting action when we see cars come down into pit lane and then see how it breaks off.
Andrew Kinsella clears Chris Fowler. These guys about 6/10 behind the Adrenaline teammates in front. That's Brian Carey on the outside. Tony Shaw in Iowa's own gets to the inside. He has really made fresh rubber work nicely for him. Started back in, 17th, 18th position, has carved his way up to a top 10 position, but gets a little bit squirrely on the exit of the corner as the caution flies for the second time today, and surely will bring all the cars down onto pit road, and that is a very damaged Dallara IR18. That is Ken Hacker. And I think the other car involved here is Stefan Larkamp for the Alcantech NHR Esports team. So once more, let's turn our attention to the RaceSpot TV replay, and 2 doesn't go into 1, JP, and well, it's Hacker that goes for the ride of his life. Oh! And
wow.
And who's that second car that gets mixed up?
I believe that might be Rigney, if I'm seeing the colors correctly, but as you can see, the first part of the incident was just trying to dive in the corner down the banking and not realizing he was going to be there, and there's Rigney, who's not expecting all that, who just runs to the back end of the secondary car. You can see right here what the idea was. Sparkle would have come in right there, probably was not expecting to be that higher up on the racetrack, trying to get a bit of a run down the banking. And then you see the full speed of Mike Rigney trying to lock it up. Boom.
Good call there.
That's the ultimate lack of luck right there. Like he barely avoided the first one, then he thought he was actually clear, and then I think that's Larkamp's car coming down right there, and just caught him by surprise.
You had to pick a lane, and I think unfortunately for Reagan, he just picked the wrong way, and into the back of the NHR Esport machine he goes, has seemingly magically fixed the right front suspension, but at the very least is going to, well, need a new pair of pants, also going to need a new front wing. As expected, the field is on to pit road. As per normal, Matt Houston stays out there to try and get the bonus points for laps led, but about 27 other cars down into the box. Robert Malechka, Henry Bennett have those prime pit stalls as Barrett Rolfe very quickly releases himself off of pit road. There comes Connor Harrington. So it'll be Harrington, Rolfe, Beard, Kraus, the top 4 in that race off of pit road. Malechka, Bennett, Otis, Blocker, Newsom, and Schowen complete the rest of the top 10. And it's a very busy pit road, Lorenzo.
I think it is the busiest one we've seen this year, and we're even counting the Indy 500 on this one.
So, about to get to the end of that first green flag run. 40 laps in the books. And, well, caution is back out. That really hurts the likes of the cars that had come down multiple times. The guys, of course, that came in that first time around JP, but at the end of the day, it's still looking good for someone like Tony Schowen, and he's proven that if we get to the closing stages of the race, even though the temperatures might drop off just very slightly, it does look as though tires are not going to be as unimportant as maybe we suspected.
Yeah, for Tony Schowen, he was the highest running up driver of the drivers who pit under the previous caution flag, keep in mind. In fact, top 10 once Matt Houston ducks down this time by along the commitment cone. Everyone else, for the most part, just seemed to get stuck in a bit of quicksand, almost like, with some of the competitors back there, with some of the shuffling more so, and squabbling they did. You also had a grouping that the caution flag helped regain the pack to, that include drivers like Krahula, Morgan, O'Brien, Taylor, and a few others who were running at least 5-10 seconds back, who were struggling to get the swap draft together. So in our words, this caution flag obviously is going to be helping a fair bit of drivers get themselves back grouped together and re-strategize themselves. And for others, they took a bit of a gamble. Now, everyone's back on the equal playing field.
There is the O'Brien car, like I said, a wonderful new livery on it as well. He got second. Oh! Have we just had a... We've just had a crash under caution. Not the first time I've had to see that on RaceBot TV, and I have a suspicion it might be technical issues for Brian Carey. I mentioned the VR headset, and let's take a look here. Carey's already retired from the race, runs himself straight into the wall, does the good thing though, Justin, pulls it to a stop and lets the field get on by.
And he only said one thing on the radio, Arjuna: failure. The second he said that, up into the wall he goes and quickly gets himself to the racetrack to avoid a delayed green flag on a restart. And now, that means 2 cars are currently off circuit. Everyone else is still running.
Heartbreak. Heartbreak for Carey, who I know was hoping for a good run. The pace car is down. Second caution comes to an end. It is Connor Harrington out front with Barrett Rolfe in close pursuit. We are racing once more in the ButtKicker US 500. Another good start from the entire field, but here we go. It's Rolfe to the race lead, plus 20. He punches his ticket to the front and now has to set to work to try and work with Connor Harrington to try and build an advantage over the cars behind, Justin.
And we'll see that swap draft come into play right here. Rolfe, it seems, prefers to hold on to that middle of the bottom line. He's not making it easy, in fact, for Harrington to even try the swap draft. He wants to try and dictate the pace here, it looks like, Arjuna.
Not sure I agree with that call, Lorenzo, because we've seen just how easy it was to go back and forth, and Kraus now gets around Brian Beard. He's got to third position.
Yeah, it's too hard for you to fight. I know you want to be front of the first few laps of the race, but you're brushing off the tires, and you kind of bring Phil Kraus closer into the mix. Also, Brian Beer and Robert Maletzka. So you really don't want to have like 5 cars trying to share the draft, point 1, point 2 of each car. Of course, that makes the racing a little bit more dangerous than usual. But hey, at the end of the day, Rolf actually retains for a bit out of a second.
Does stack them up very slightly. Can Phil Kraus follow his teammate down the inside? He will try and do so, working through turns 3 and 4, but I think Rolf has just enough momentum. No, he doesn't. It's now private label team hype 1 and 2. Joshua Chin and Jason Brophy 13th and Wes Chin 15th respectively, so working out somewhat in their favor right now as they try and reel on in the likes of Kinsella. Of course, in that team's championship, Justin, with Carey having that technical issue, it does mean potentially going to be easy for the private label team hype guys to just build up that advantage in this double points race.
Like I said, very early on in the race, to be able to be thinking about points outside of the little laps for the most part. So now it's that opportunity that these drivers were looking for. Chances to be able to bounce back, chances to be able to claw their way forward, and it's going that way where Brophy and Shin, I think, may work together in the heart of the pack. Keep in mind that with Kraus and Harrington 1-2, they can dictate the whole pace of this field with everyone else continuing to try and squabble third on back.
Brian Carey is rolling himself back onto the track, but he is now 3 laps adrift. Going to be difficult for him to try and regain anything from this race. And there you can see that Canadian was just at the front of the shot as here we go. Kraus and Harrington, they're now dictating that pace, swapping back and forth. Almost 20% into this race. It is almost too wide behind Rolf as here comes Ryan Otis. Opens the door for Malechka, I think, as Brian Beard had a bit of a bobble on the outside of the corner. And look at that, the Canadian Andrew Kinsella, who had his technical issues of his own at the start of this race, has worked his way back up into 7th. Now to the inside and past his teammate Henry Bennett.
And what I like is that Kinsella's in the inside blocker trying to follow suit, and Kinsella still have some slight issues right there, but Adrenaline, the Motorsports, still have a very strong lineup right there in this top 10 so far. Nobody feeling a whole lot of pressure, so they're trying to regard themselves on field and find the spots whenever they can find.
Something happened over the radio as well, Justin. I think Connor Harrington wasn't too impressed with what we saw at the front of the field.
Yeah, keep in mind the near contact with Barrett Rolf, where Rolf went a higher up arc in that initial defense before this became 1-2 up in the front, where it's like, okay, too hard to pass. Guess what? Next lap, you get the situation where the opportunity to pass comes into play, and Barrett Rolf, in turn, essentially gives Kraus and Harrington command as a group over this field. This race is continuously swapped around momentum bit by bit, but as we see in the heart of the pack as well, the different lines are starting to go away a little bit, with that bottom line being good on corner entry to apex, but you need to clear by exit to be able to get a pass done. Big defensive block by Blocker there.
Yeah. Almost gets passed by Fowler and Newsom, and I can't, when I hear Connor Harrington say that over the radio, Justin, you know what pops into my mind? What we saw at Texas between Barrett Rolf and Connor Harrington coming to the end of that race. Yes, I know it was in the closing stages, so a little bit different, but there was an aggressive block, and I think aggressive is putting it mildly, from Harrington to defend all the way to the inside. Shades of Colton Herter and Scott Dixon a couple of years ago in the Lone Star State, but Harrington got aided by the fact that Rolf wasn't feeling too aggressive in one of his opening outings in the IndyCar series. I just wonder if it's going to heat up between those two cars. They're side by side once more.
There is that potential factor, but at the same time, Arjuna, think of this big picture. Do you want to be that guy who is in the rookie campaign, ahead of schedule, keep in mind, from the original plans for 2022, and be a disruptor for the championship or potentially destroy someone's championship hopes? You have to think smart on that, but look at Rolf, though. He's been looking still for these chances, at the very least, to break up this rhythm between Harrington and Kraus and put himself in the midst of the swap draft to be able to give himself a chance to lead some laps, as I believe Carey is getting reeled in and one driver just moved towards the apron.
We're looking rearwards from Brian Carey, who's actually going to come down onto pit road, I think. Yes, he is indeed. So any potential traffic situations have been negated. Carey has elected, I think, to maybe call it quits. And I don't blame him because these guys have really kept it clean. Other than 2 cautions that we've had, they've been side by side, almost 3 wide in the thick of the pack right now. They are 3 wide. Kinsella on the outside. It is Ryan Otis in the middle. Adam Blocker trying to regain that track position where he qualified. Still stuck down low and will slide up right in front of his teammate Henry Bennett, who's defending from Chris Fowler in the Alcantech NHR Esports machine, but just love listening to the sound and the rumble of the engines as they thunder on past our cameras here. And Lorenzo, they have had some moments, but they've also kept it exceptionally clean given how close they're racing at these speeds.
Yeah, talk about Kinsella, and look what he has done. Basically go for the double whammy on the inside. What a move.
Loses out to Rolf, but should slide up the track and hold on to now P3. So at one point was in 15th. He's still having those minor blips of, what can you call them, connection issues that I'm sure are scaring some of his competitors right now, Justin.
Yeah, when you see that happen for a fellow driver, especially when they're fighting for the race lead with moves such as this, it can be terrifying with the give and take. Kinsella, though, he's more focused on trying to get his organization to the point. What a big send, and all of that stemmed in part, Arjuna, from the fact that Rolf elected not to go for a swap draft, and neither did Kraus. They all just said, you know what, let's stay in a line along the outside wall, and Kinsella just drove by him.
Confirmation that Carey is retired due to those technical issues. His VR headset really not playing nice, and he'll have to try and get that resolved before we go racing the next time here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. 53 laps, 54 laps now in the books, as across the start-finish line will come one more time. Harrington now stuck in second with that dirty air. It's opened the door for Chris Fowler to follow Kinsella through, side by side. It's Rolf and Fowler.
And a little bit behind that, I'm loving the action a little bit behind that, because Brian Pierre dropped a few spots in the top 10. But a guy that has been noticing getting my attention right here, Michael O'Brien, coming all the way down from the back, a little bit to the back, but being aggressive at this point of the race.
Jason Brophy has followed suit as well. There's a number of cars that have made some big steps in the race, not just listen to that engine roar. Not just the likes of Barrett Rolf, but Jason Brophy is plus 12. Alexis Newsom, Justin, is, oh, look at that. O'Brien forces Brian Beard to go a little bit low. O'Brien almost up into the wall. Alexis Newsom down 12 positions from where she started.
And keep in mind, that's in part with Newsom just continuously losing the top line, and we've seen with some of the defensiveness needed for some of these drivers, if you get pried off the wall, so to speak, down the straightaway, you're likely moving back on the pylon. And for Newsom, every time she's had a run to the bottom, she's not been able to complete the pass fully, and it opens up the door for the next car. See the example right here. Tries to run the middle line, a bit air wash, just able to slam the door shut. Any later on the response, and she loses at least one more position down the front straight away unless there's a major checkup. So it's all where you need to be predictive on the lines, but be able to guess them properly at the right times to be able to hold on.
On board with the Chris Fowler camera once more, as this time it's Kinsella who will dive it down to the inside line, and now look forward. This is where timing the run becomes so crucial. There's an art to doing this, especially when you go to the brickyard, which is a little bit tougher in my opinion to time it, but look at how Kinsella just pops himself to the outside. He knows there's no point in defending this run, Lorenzo, as Fowler back to the pointy end of the race.
Yeah, Fowler's really good race so far. That number 20 car looking really pacey during this mid portion of the stint, and going for a few spots, but of course Bennett might try to fight back that one.
Tyler Graf is another car that's on the move. We saw him slip back as a result of coming down onto pit road. He's past Beard, who's gone from the lead to 11th position, almost squeezes O'Brien into the wall, opens the door for Jason Brophy to follow suit as we jump on board with the number 88 car.
And for Brophy, he's been a bit more aggressive this run compared to Chin, who has migrated his way towards back where he was at the time of the caution flag previously to 20th position. But you can see with Brophy, you need to be able to scan what's going on in front of you, see, okay, which cars are falling back, which cars have momentum. And Brophy, I think has now picked up that there is an issue for Brian Beard's car in some form with the pace that's coming off that machine.
His actual speeds look okay, but the lap times have been drifting off, and I just wonder if maybe he's gotten up into the wall and damaged his side pod, which is very detrimental to the overall speed of the car. As O'Brien gets forced into the wall, there's further contact as Jason Brophy has got involved. Somehow we are still green as the field streaks across the back straightaway. Finally, the yellow flag comes out. About four cars get involved. Tyler Groff, O'Brien, and I think James Krahula has been mixed up, and Matt Taylor, for not the first time today, has had a big issue. He is down straight away to the inside fence and resets himself back to pit road. Lorenzo had just been saying that these drivers are maybe driving like it's a 25-lap race rather than a 250-lap race. This is the second part of the issue. James Krahula comes together with, I believe, that's Scott Holmes in the Sector 5 racing machine. But let's start with what kicked it off, Lorenzo. It was Michael O'Brien. It was Tyler Groff. They were side by side. And I just wonder if Tyler Groff came up the track just that little bit too much.
In my opinion, he did, because you're going to see O'Brien on the top all the way up, and you see that Graf's car just kind of like understeers, but it's not that normal understeer. You're trying to migrate to the top line, and I think he kind of miscalculated where O'Brien was and caught him by surprise. Instant contact happened, and then unfortunately you're going to see that Krahula, Brophy actually were caught up in the mix. Unfortunate.
So watch from Krahula. You can see the puff of smoke. He's not even let off the throttle. I'm a little bit shocked, but at the same time, given how long it took for that caution to be flown, I do understand why Krahula did not instantly get on the brakes, get on the anchors to slow himself down. Let's ride around one more time, JP, and just watch this, because it is sickening. You see the puff of smoke. You have to remember, the caution is not out yet. The caution only flies after this comes out, after this incident.
You know what I'm thinking here with Krahula? He might have seen the smoke starting to drift to the outside wall and thought the spinning car was still going to the outside. But as soon as that smoke dissipated, Arjuna, it ended up being right in the middle of the racetrack. And it seemed like he thought he was in the clear. And sometimes you just have to commit to a line or commit to a potential hole, and sometimes that hole ends up turning into a painting of a brick wall instead.
Jason Brophy, who got some marginal contact to at least the front right suspension, is still down on pit road. Looks like a relatively long hold. He'll be hoping not to drop from the leading lap, but it might be one Adrenaline Motorsports red car out of the race. It might be a private label team car out of the race as well. Waiting for Matt Houston to come down onto pit road. As per usual, trying to get, whether it be a bonus point for leading laps, whether it be just strategy, trying to play it out a little bit. But behind him, it's Chris Fowler now to the net race lead. Andrew Kinsella, Barrett Rolfe complete the top three. Harrington, Malechka, Otis, Blocker, Bennett, Newsom, and Kraus round out the top 10. It'll be interesting now to see, Lorenzo, if Brian Beard has fixed whatever issue he's had on his car. He stayed about the same time on pit road as the rest of the field.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if that actually solved on its own, like what happened to Kinsella, because Beer was having a really good first stint. Of course, second stint wasn't as best as it probably wanted to have, but other than that, a really good race so far from that number 5 car, showing why I said he's having another great outing at these Triple Crown events.
Justin, you've been hearing some chatter over the radio right now.
Yes, and keep in mind, this is from one of the crew chiefs. I believe he was trying to inform his driver of the situation too, where they wanted this race to spread out, Arjuna, because here's the thing. The caution flags, of course, bunch everyone back up, and we see how crazy the racing can get when you're all packed together, with everyone separated by about 3 seconds from first back to 20th. For many teams, the thought process you have to think, Arjuna, is if you can get green flag pit stops, it'll split the packs up, it'll split the fields up, to be able to be where you have different strategies and groups together to be able to get into your own pace. And this is going to be the tough part of all of this, Arjuna, is you need to get yourself to the green flag pit stop for that to happen. And of course, we've seen in a couple cases, this is not an easy track to, for one, get to green flag stops, but for two, once you get towards that situation, it's so easy for drivers to just lock it up and spin their cars off towards the inside wall.
30 cars have now been whittled down to 22 remaining competitors. It is Fowler at the front of the field. The ButtKicker US 500 is green once more. Single file, they'll start, but once again, the slicing and dicing will resume. The run from Kinsella gets him to the inside. The Canadian, still having his technical issues, to the race lead. Here comes Barrett Rolfe as well, Justin.
And Barrett Rolfe, that time not electing to take the move, but this is to where, again, if you want to dictate the pace of the pack, you need to be able to predict where the lines are going to play. And the tough part with all this, with the technical issues of Kinsella, is you might not be able to see if he makes a later lane change move down the straightaway. So that could really affect how some of these drivers dictate their various lines.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez trying to get past Tony Schowen. Nothing doing there as we jump on board with our ButtKicker onboard camera. This time it's Schowen who goes down low as he gets past, looks to get past the black and white machine of Adam Fraser. Fraser goes up the track just with that run, should hold on, and there's a bit of a pocket of air that's opened up, but Nunez is just a little bit too far behind. Nunez, who's had a tumultuous season, if I can say that, across both Speedway and IndyCar competition. Running now plus 13 in 14th position. Plenty of time still to go. We've only got one car who is circulating laps down. That is Stefan Larkamp in the 62 machine. Of course, he was mixed up in our second caution of the day. It was Larkamp and Ken Hacker that came to blows, as it looks like technical issues for Brian Beard are further complicating his run here today, Lorenzo.
Yeah, it's a little bit complicated, but of course, still a lot of race to unravel, and this track, because of it is back racing, does make a little bit of a more of a attrition race than what we normally saw in Indianapolis. So it's one of those things that you require, I think, that extra dose of patience to navigate it throughout the track, and it's going to be interesting to see how everything pans out as everybody. I'm loving to see this fact that nobody being aggressive at this point of the race so far during the restart.
Don't say stuff like that, Lorenzo. We know how your commentators can
know.
Be. Yeah, I think he just jinxed it.
I think you just jinxed it, that's for sure.
All right, hashtag I jinxed it again.
Hashtag blame Lorenzo. We'll have to get Tyler Maxson to build some graphics up to display that one. You know what I'm talking about. Here comes our defending series champion, Adam Blocker, side by side with the reigning Retro Series champion, Ryan Otis, in the beautiful red and white machine. Holds on for the time being, and I tell you what, Blocker at one point, Justin, had been back in the pack, and it looked like struggling. I don't necessarily think just because he had been down on the inside line. With the fixed setup, you still have the adjustments, the front and rear ARBs, that weight jacket that you can move across the weight of the car as well to just adjust that balance and how it will respond through the corner. It looks like Blocker is getting increasingly comfortable as he now gets past not just Otis, but looks to get past Malechka as well.
I think part of that was with the track cooling down more and more. He's getting more and more grip levels and seems more comfortable that the grip is coming together. Keep in mind, it was 4 degrees Celsius higher last time we looked at the temperatures. That's how big the cloud cover above the racetrack is getting, and you see in the backdrop, it's only getting more and more cloudier. So that's helping a little bit in that regard. As well, too, the more laps, the more repetition you get amongst the race pack, the more comfortable some of the drivers can get, and we're starting to see that come into play. Also, a big send behind. How about Kraus nearly into the side pod of Bennett?
3 wide, Newsom takes advantage, regains 8th position, and I did mention that Adam Blocker has driven about 1,800 miles in the last 2 days as he's been on a bit of a holiday, as the NTT IndyCar Series got a bit of a break before they go for their West Coast swing. A triple header of action starts in about 7 days' time from the Portland Raceway. Maybe even sooner than that. I'm getting my calendar all sorts of confused. But yeah, add 500 miles to that, albeit virtually. Blocker is going to be rather tired, I think, come the end of tonight's action, as he gets now on past Newsom. Meanwhile, out front, Kinsella, Fowler, Rolfe, 1, 2, 3. Harrington lurking in the background, and Lorenzo, given how Kinsella started this race, I mean, right off the bat, people telling him that maybe he should be pulling to the side and letting things go, maybe instigated our first caution as well with those internet issues. Looking very comfortable at this point in time.
Jumping on that one, absolutely looking comfortable. Yes, Lorenzo.
No, I was just gonna say it's kind of like that kiss on the shoulders to the haters and of sorts, and showing that he has the pace. That's why he's one of the setup builders for this series, and he has that pace to back that up, and why he's in the lead so far. But go ahead, Justin.
Was just about to say, absolutely is looking comfortable at this point. Now it's just going to be the interesting mark of how the rest of this race plays out. It's still early on. To emphasize once again, we still are waiting for drivers to make their first pit stops under green flag conditions, but it's been a race where there have been several dozen lead changes already.
It's been a fascinating one. Just 23 cars left here running in Michigan. You're watching RaceBot TV and coverage of the ButtKicker US 500. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in a few moments' time. Welcome back to RaceBot TV and coverage of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. It's round 14. It's the second Triple Crown event of the season. It's the ButtKicker US 500. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined in the RaceBot TV commentary booth by Justin Prince and Lorenzo Bonder, a three-man booth for this special Triple Crown event. Live timing is powered by our partners at ATVO. You can visit racebot.tv/Indy to follow along with your favorite team and drivers. It's been a wild race, to be completely honest, JP. 3 cautions so far, down from 30 to just 23 competitors, but you can see they've been swapping back and forth out front. It is Andrew Kinsella, it's Chris Fowler in control of the field.
It's been an impressive race with so many different drivers showing the rhythm at various portions. Remember, it was Harrington just about 20 minutes ago who was among those drivers controlling the pace. He's now back in the midst of the 7th spot. So all this shuffling is seeing the mixture of different strategies and different tempos coming into play. But one thing to keep in mind is the tempo being set by drivers like Adam Blocker, who is already up to 4th, to try and see what they want to do with these drivers already approaching halfway through the field run.
And as Blocker tries to get on past Malechko, who's been pinched down to that inside line in a double points race, Lorenzo, the title we were saying how crucial it was for Blocker to get some good points on the board here today, because very likely he'll miss the next trip as we head to the land of the rising sun in the twin ring Motegi. Blocker, who won at Indianapolis, is looking comfortable, increasingly comfortable, as we run now into the middle portion of the race.
I think with the fact that we have a last over here, I think Blockers might have seen the need of trying to move up a few spots, count with a few teammates to try to help himself with, like Kinsella up in the front, but he's getting some tough opposition, right? I noticed making some good work on the outside, overtaking him. There's also Maletska behind him and Connor Harrington too. So the runner-up in the standings also putting up a lot of pressure on the leader of the second.
Harrington, who was victorious last time we went racing on the speedways, that was at the Lone Star State, that was in the Texas Motor Speedway. Here is Henry Bennett, who started up the grid in second position. Now there are runs in ninth, as here comes Alexis Newsom, another car that started up the grid. Newsom is -6 on the day. Bennett has lost 8 positions from where he started. Right behind in his adrenaline teammate Tony Schowen is having to defend from a big mover in Lionel Callisto, +15. It's been a day where drivers have seesawed through the field. Left-hand side, you can see just how crazy it's been, and what a run for Barrett Rolfe in the early stages, Justin. As we came to that first caution that flew on, I think it was lap number 5 of the action, he was already +10 from where he started.
It just seems at Michigan things click and quickly when it comes to Barrett Rolfe, because while the qualifying speed, as we've seen all season in speedway competition, in some cases now in IndyCar action, hasn't been hit there, his race pace is always among the best of the best. And that in turn is helping him so much in turn, Arjuna, with being able to cut through the pack. So that's helping him with the draft tracks in particular to put himself in situations such as this. Right now, at the very least, it looks more so he's in conserve mode, knowing that the top two are in the midst of their swap trap positioning. He just seems to be content with riding his line and staying in third.
And crucially, I mean, we haven't had green flag stops yet, but I'm just hoping that this might be the run. You can see now the stint length. Fuel window is about 39 laps when you're running by yourself, but when you're in the pack, you might even be looking at a 46-lap window. And given the stop and start nature of the race so far, I'm just hoping, Lorenzo, we get that fuel, the fuel mileage race. We get that green flag run. That means that drivers have to execute on pit road, because given how little downforce you're running, it's not as difficult as Indianapolis, in my opinion. But slowing yourself down to pit road speed, getting into the box, these are all things that the best have to master week in, week out.
Yeah, and due to the fact that you're going basically 220, 225 miles per hour, depending on circumstances, and you have to brake at about 80 miles per hour when you come down into pit lane, or even 60 miles per hour into coming to pit lane, it makes you really tricky, because you cannot do, you can kind of do it between 3 and 4 and then going to the inside of the pit lane. It's so hard, even up to the point that maybe some drivers might have to take the risk of going to the backstretch and then getting to 3 and 4 and have to reduce the current time.
Tony Schowen has held off the challenge from Callisto, and they're now 4/10, a couple of car lengths behind the top 10. Henry Bennett just down the road. And we've been talking about the track conditions over the course of this race. Sorry, just have to listen to those engines once more. Justin had said it's cooled down even more from where it started during qualifying. And we're not even halfway through this one, Justin. We may be looking at the track temperature dropping anywhere from another 5 to 10 degrees Celsius as we come to the end of this race, as they're almost 3 wide for the race lead.
And they were really getting packed up there. A bit of a checkup with Fowler down the front straightaway this time, with Rolfe and Blocker newly compressing to their back wings. Keep in mind, that could happen multiple times with these drivers getting the swap, but the tough part is they're not really in the best position to try and make a move unless they're really daring to be that bold. And when you have the swap drafter going up for the move down at the end of the front straightaway either way, that kind of takes away the chance for the driver third or fourth in line to be able to realistically follow through, because you could then lose that top groove. It looks like Rolfe is, again, just content on his mark. Blocker, he's trying to use different lines to get clean air to be able to rotate.
Series organizer George Anzaldo has just pointed out something in our YouTube chat that I had forgotten to mention, with Christopher missing today's race. Of course, it's a long weekend, Labor Day in the United States of America. Stouffer spending some well-earned time with his family. Saw him with his children on a roller coaster earlier today. We'll have a first-time winner here in the Wolverine State, and Chris Stouffer also has the most laps led at this track, so very much looks like we'll have a new contender swinging their way to the front. Other drivers in the field that, of course, have led laps in the past. Joshua Chin, 1 lap led coming into the race. Tyler Groff had 2 laps led into this action. Adam Blocker only 6 laps led. Bit surprising to see the Lionheart King that far down in the field. Andrew Kinsella has been adding to his total, 16 laps coming into this one. Tony Schowen, 29 laps coming into this one. Was kind of hoping we'd see Jason Galvin out on display, but in his 42 car, only 43 laps led. Galvin, who of course did win from the Phoenix Raceway in what was an emotional victory in the Thumbs Up Cancer Down 200-mile race. Out front still, back and forth they go. Still yet to come to lap 100 in this race. And this is where I think patience has to sometimes be forefront of the driver's mind, Lorenzo. I said it at the start. You can't win it. To finish first you must finish. You can't win on lap number 1. You can definitely lose coming to the green flag.
It can definitely lose coming to the green flag, and I think every lap over here you take is important, and it's going to be an interesting one to say at the very least, because it looks like everybody's kind of bunched up. There hasn't been a whole lot of frantic action within this top 10, because I think they're more spread out than what we've seen compared to the previous restart of sorts. So we might have a chance here to actually get our first green flag pit stop up this
Lorenzo, don't say stuff like that.
All right, so I cannot. I'm gonna be privy to say only things. All right, never mind.
Basically, we're gonna just start restricting what you can say. I think that's what we're gonna have to do. Is Newsom is side by side. Is that Lionel Callisto? Yes, it is. A new paint scheme on Callisto's car. Some wonderful liveries on display. I am partial to Krause's car, not just because it's in a beautiful hot pink color, but definitely does look quite nice. As there goes the Sector 5 machine, now getting passed by Tony Schowen. 10 cars separated by 1.9 seconds. It really is pack racing at this point in time. And as the temperature cools off, it will just get even more close as Kinsella continues to have bobbles, not on the track necessarily, but in his internet connection. Let's talk to Tyler Groff, the driver of the 26 car involved in that caution on lap number 61. And Tyler, I'm sure you're disappointed that your race came to an end so early on today.
Yeah, I don't know, I keep looking at the replay. I think I was just kind of put in a really crappy spot. I was following Henry, and then really late in the corner, Michael got a run, and I mean, it's his job to get to the front, right? So he's got to try it. And when he got to my right rear, it just started plowing, just like a light switch. And I tried putting more wheel into it. I tried to lift, and it just faded up into him, and then my rear suspension broke, and I had nothing I could do.
So I have to ask you, Tyler, do you like the sort of pack racing where, cars are separated by millimeters, and really the difference between life and death when you get into those sort of incidents is just responding perfectly at the right time? I'm sure it's a little bit stressful for you guys behind the wheel.
Yeah, it's stressful because, 15 laps prior to that, we were all kind of comfortable and taking it easy. And then one person pushes up front and it stacks up, and then everybody sees it as this massive opportunity, and then everybody just sends it. And I think it's just a product of pack racing. When you see the whole top 10 within a second of each other, you can make up a lot of time in places. And I don't know. I personally don't like the pack racing. I think it takes a little bit out of the strategy, but it is what it is, and it's the same for everybody. So you got to figure it out.
Well, you came into this race 14th in the championship. We've got trips to Twin Ring Motegi and Iowa next before we go road course racing once more from the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I must say, the second half of the season has an immensely fun ride to the finish. Close things off with trips to Detroit, Belle Isle, and of course Fontana for our final Triple Crown event of the season.
Yeah, I'm just looking for top 10s. this season's just been awful. If something's happened, I've either been caught up in it or was the start of it. So I'm just looking to get some results. I like the short tracks, and the road courses coming up here suit me pretty well too. So hopefully the luck aspect of racing decides to go in my favor for the rest of the year.
You just need the prayers to the iRacing god to be directed the right way. My PayPal address is also a nice place to go. We'll get Lorenzo to make sure he says nothing nice about you. Thanks for all your hard work on the series and the graphics, Tyler. Looking forward to seeing you then next time from the land of the rising sun.
Yeah, have a good one.
That was Tyler Groff, and just in time, we will get out the interviews to pit stops. Justin, green flag pit stops finally on the cards.
And it shouldn't be surprised to see these two come in first with how they've been essentially in command for the race lead, getting the clean air on their front wings. More pit stop calls coming in for the rest of the pack now, and it's going to be intriguing how this all layers out throughout the rest of this race and how some of these drivers in turn attack this pit entry, because we've seen a bit more conservative entry from Fowler compared to Kinsella on that entry, and they're still side by side off the lane after slightly different pit stop deltas.
Barrett Rolfe, the next car to blink. He brings in Luis Gonzalez Nunez with him. So entering into this crucial pit stop window, there you can see you slide your car into the boxes. The Ascari Autosport machine up on the jacks, full of fuel. Four fresh Firestone tires going onto that car. Try saying that one 5 times fast. As Nunez will work his way out of the box as well. Into the box will go Mike Rigney. Still waiting for the likes of Adam Blocker, Ryan Otis, Robert Malechka, and company. Interesting, though, we thought that green flag stops, Lorenzo, would be what we need to get the field stretched out. Otis and Malechka almost separated by 1 full second now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to see them separated by a full second now, as I'm hearing Beard and some other drivers now going to the pit lane, so it's going to be a busy pit lane nevertheless. I think the problem is Barrett Rolfe came in all alone from that guys within the top 10, so it's going to be interesting. Who does he work with whenever everybody pit stops?
Malechka locks the inside left tire as he gets down onto pit road speed. Has he slowed his car in time? We'll have to wait and see. Kalisto, Beard, Fraser, Morgan, and Razmas, the rest of the cars, along with the Muscle Man, making their way down onto towards pit road. Kalisto up on the jacks. Really interested to see if Malechka has avoided the wrath of the iRacing race control gods. Up on the jacks he goes. I think he might be okay then. No penalty necessarily being served. Down he goes, off he goes. Malechka releases himself. Straight onto the limiters, off the limiter, as well as Adam Blocker, Alexis Newsom, Henry Bennett, Tony Shaw, and Joshua Chin. The next cars to come on down. Almost halfway through this race, Justin.
And these drivers not really making any mistakes throughout this pit entry and exit sequence so far. No one's really lighting up the tires, making any major mistakes, trying to come back on the racetrack. It's been well executed from all these competitors so far, but as we talked about, this could spread out a little bit of the field with some of these different deltas. And as well, it seems as though a bit of the overcut may be a bit powerful, because Barrett Rolfe did pick up a decent amount of time overall on the racetrack compared to the rest of the other cars. In fact, Fowler and Kinsella are about 1 second back still, with Adam Blocker now wedged between them.
Fowler and Kinsella really were able to carve their way through the field, so Phil Krause has been able to extend it the longest. He's still out there and trucking 44 laps and counting, but here he comes off the banking. That pink machine goes. Another car locking up the inside front. I think Krause has managed to get himself slowed down in time. Ryan Otis releases himself. Connor Harrington releases himself. But they are going to be swarmed. Rolfe is through. Blocker is through. I think these cars are going to come out at best in 7th or 8th positions, Lorenzo.
It does look like that. I see right now Harrington coming in 9th place, Otis in 8th. They're going to get solid up for some more drivers like Lionel Kalisto. So this is at that point of the race where I mentioned it will split the field, but how big is the split? We have yet to be sure about it. But so far, Rolfe and Blocker with a really good restart.
Krause has been a bit slower than I kind of expected with that overcut. So Rolfe, Blocker, Fowler, Kinsella, Malechka, the top 5. Krause might bridge the gap between Malechka and Newsom on back, as now Blocker to the inside. 5 cars, I should say, separated by 0.6 of a second. Newsom and Kraus side by side for a moment. You can see some separation between those cars. More separation back to Ryan Otis, and then 1.2 seconds, Justin, to Connor Harrington, who started this race off full of promise. But Adam Blocker, the two guys fighting for the championship, Blocker and Harrington, Blocker is taking control as we reach the halfway point.
Matter of fact, I think Blocker just took over the race lead last time by at the stripe, so it is in Blocker's hands, and this is what we were talking about. He's been known in a lot of cases for being a bit patient at the start of some of the races this season, but once you allow him up at the front, he pounces and then tries to run away quickly. The tough part is, it's not going to be easy to break away here. If anything, he wants to be among those drivers who gets themselves in a swap trap position. The question is, who does it end up being? Because it seems like nobody wants second. In fact, they're fighting extremely hard still for that spot, allowing everybody else to close back up.
Now we're looking at 8 cars separated by 1.5 seconds. An additional 1.6 to Harrington in that 9th spot. Jason Brophy 1 lap down and off the pace. Last lap for him was a 34.245 for your race leader. 33.081. Fowler, full of confidence, retakes the race lead. I think this is what Blocker wants, though, Lorenzo. Justin was saying you don't want to run in second. I think you don't want to run out front. I think Blocker is pretty happy to let the leader go on through.
Oh, absolutely. You know, just swapping drafting the time back and forth whenever he goes into the turns and saving that extra amount of fuel. I'm doing some mathematics over here. At least they need 3 more pit stops, regardless if they go 38 laps, 36 laps, or even 40 laps. 40 laps gives you three pit stops in 3/4 or 3/5, and if they go 43 laps, for example, they can actually cut that to basically half a stint of a pit stop. So it's going to be interesting how that fuel mileage goes throughout this race, and how much the yellow flags, if we get more, actually play out in effect.
I'm knocking on wood. I'm hoping we go green from here. 3 cautions is not necessarily too high, but 1 caution from here could really change the game and change the luck for some of these competitors. As that's more lap. No, that's Malechka who's gone on past Blocker. So I think Blocker is pretty happy not even to be running in second now. He's dropped to 3rd. Almost 4 different lines being taken through turns 1 and 2. The sun continues to drop. Now racing at 5:20 in the virtual Michigan International Speedway. What a fun race it's been, and I'm trying to remember our predictions from the start, and I've got to be honest, I've been so busy clicking so many buttons that I don't necessarily remember how things...
I remember.
Oh, do you have them written down then, Lorenzo?
I do know that Justin played Blocker. I picked Newsom.
I picked Malechka.
You picked Malechka.
That I remember as Kinsella and Rolf get close to blows, but here comes Malechka to the front. All 3 of our picks well and truly still in contention, so, I mean, RaceBot TV commentator's curse, clearly not as bad as we might have been thinking, but still plenty of time to go. Not even close to the halfway point, Lorenzo.
Yeah, we're not even halfway to the point, but he forgot to say a very key word over here, Arjuna, yet.
Yeah, I'm trying not to think about that potential proposition. Jason Brophy, still 22nd position. I tell you what, we've been talking about drivers' championships, but thinking of the team's standings here, Justin, yes, Carey is out of the race. Brophy, though struggling, is going to make things a little better for Adrenaline Motorsports Red. If Henry Bennett can work his way back to the front of the field, they're looking good to close that gap down.
Yeah, they're in a decent situation as a result of all the attrition. Keep in mind, too, Chin has really just rode in the back of the main trains and hasn't really been in a position even attack. If anything, he's been letting cars go. So there isn't that sense of urgency, at least yet, from the private label team Hype Machines. And Adrenaline Motorsports is saying, you know what? If you guys don't want to dictate the pace, we'll try and do it in some of these cases. And that's where you see some of these drivers now taking advantage. Now, the tough part of all of that is, can they get themselves up there fully? That's the main thing, because this pack is compressing forward, as shown by Ryan Otis just all of a sudden popping up the 4th.
Otis has got on past Barrett Rolfe, Alexis Newsom. Momentum shifting around at all times as we ride on board with the Chris Fowler on board, and look forward as Fowler now will do that swap. Malechka the third for that factory back team. Pops himself to the outside line, lets Chris Fowler go on through. Number 20 car retakes that race lead. Lorenzo, it's not just the battle out front. You've been noticing in the team standings, there's plenty more excitement. Alcantech NHR Esports with Fowler in a very strong position. Might be able to get the jump on one of their other competitors.
Hold on a second, guys. Newsom just pulled off the racetrack.
Yeah, I just noticed that. What happened?
Newsom is either having some technical issues or she's come out to the wall. I think technical issues. She's still out there. She's still running.
She hit the wall, Arjuna. She hit the wall on the exit of turn number 2.
So that would have been a lap ago. Still rolling around the track. I don't think that's necessarily where she'll want to be. Take a look at the RaceSpot TV replay. Jump on board with the factory-backed car and watch here. Straight up into the wall. Just makes the slightest error of judgment and knocks down the outside wall, Lorenzo.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And Justin, I think you can fact me. Didn't she do something that was kind of similar within the Speedway series?
Yes, indeed. A couple times, in fact, she's been in that case where she's ran well, then ends up either getting the wall or getting floor damage, and ends up costing her a lot of spots. Keep in mind, this is bad luck that's extending for the past few weeks, going to the majority of the month of August, Lorenzo and Arjuna, where, keep in mind, in Speedway Series competition at Chicagoland Speedway, for example, there was a mistake just about every single pit stop that race for Alexis. So it is not looking pretty when it comes to Alexis Newsom's luck at all this season now. How about one of the best runs all season in IndyCar going the way of now back to 18?
Shame for her, because it's been a fledgling IndyCar Series career for her. Only started back in Silverstone a couple of races ago. She struggled at Phillip Island. Struggles now continue for the factory-backed team. The gap has closed up here, guys. At one point, Harrington was 1.6 seconds adrift of the likes of Andrew Kinsella. We are now down to 11 cars once more, separated by just 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, just real quick, I think, remember when I said yet?
Ha! Well, Lorenzo, was it you that picked Newsom?
Yes.
I'm just saying, that's all.
Yeah, let's keep it that way.
It's okay, it could be worse. You could be me in the Sports Car Open Sprint Masters Championship when we went to the Red Bull Ring, and well, yeah, the less said about that, the better. I should just stop picking drivers, that's what we decided.
I mean, in some cases, I've heard of commentators who will be like, oh, let's take a look at this driver, and they immediately crash into the wall. So it hasn't gone to that level yet.
But you're talking about Lorenzo there, Justin.
Yeah, my streak of bad luck since I
not just Lorenzo. Not just Lorenzo.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay, I guess the commentator's curse is well and truly strong, not just at RaceSpot, but across of all sorts of things. Clearly, commentators just need to tone it down from time to time, but not being toned down is the action out on track. Rolf outside of Ryan Otis. There's Lionel Calisto trying to get the run on Andrew Kinsella, who has been swarmed by the guys that have closed on through. The Sector 5 machine gets on through. Henry Bennett looks around the outside as well, Justin.
And Bennett, I think, is in a good spot as long as he's able to keep on riding on the outside just like that. Kinsella just seems to be struggling a little bit when it comes to grip. Keep in mind that there are multiple different stint lengths now mixed in across this field. Some drivers having as much as a 5-lap difference as a result of all this. And 2, Barrett Rolf's got a problem, guys. Barrett Rolf, I think, slammed the wall trying to run his line.
He's still out there, but definitely seems checked up. Car looks okay, but looks slow at the same time here, Lorenzo.
Yeah, I'm trying to notice if he actually crashed on the entry of turn number 1. But I did listen to a crash on one of the previous laps. He did race in turn number 1. He did.
Let's take a look then with our RaceSpot TV replay machine that misses nothing. On board with the Ascari Autosport machine, and oh, you can see there, it just doesn't turn in time. He might be lucky, Justin. That might be the slightest of damages to that number 33 car.
Lost him a ton of track position, though, and that can be demoralizing knowing you've ran that line all race, but then the aero wash impacts you a bit on that entry, more than you may have expected, or you didn't react quick enough, and boom, now all of a sudden Barrett Rolfe is back in 11th, and he is getting swallowed up by several drivers. He's still committed to that line, give him that much, but that car is going to have a hard time being able to regain all that track position without a restart.
He was 3/4 tenths slower that last time around. We'll try and get the lap time halfway through the action this time, by the way. Missed that with the excitement with Barrett Rolfe. Racing at the Michigan International Speedway, 250 laps. Rolfe is getting dangerously close with that outside wall. This time across the line, it's a 33.160. Still 2 tenths off the pace. That car is definitely slower now, Lorenzo, as we head through turns 1 and 2.
Absolutely, he might have some side pod damage.
And behind him, Brian Beard has done the very same thing, exiting turn number 2.
What is happening?
What's in the water at Michigan? That's what I want to know. Bad joke, I know.
Yeah, with this incident, Brian Beard, keep in mind, tried to get some clean air by rolling a little bit lower on the corner apex for exit. Just slipped up once he got back in the aero wash. Boom, up towards the wall with the right side tires. Good job by everyone else to react quickly to be able to avoid. But you can see, this is a line drivers have done all day. But right about even before he even got back in the wake of the dirty air, he was starting to wash back up the racetrack and quickly, like several drivers are starting to deal with the tight conditions.
Sent several cars scampering as well down to the inside. Saw Luis Gonzalez Nunez ducking below that white line as it is definitely getting darker here. There has been a huge cloud that has come over the racetrack, has dropped the track temperature below 40 degrees Celsius for the first time today, and potentially explains, Lorenzo, why these guys are getting more and more racy now. The grip is there, and they're just testing out exactly what these Lara IR18s can do.
Yeah, talking about testing the grip, I think the lineup police would tested the tire slip, nearly went sideways into the exit of turn number 2. Luckily for him, he just lost the spot for Ryan Otis, but he is catching back. But yeah, going 3 Celsius degrees lower than what we saw previous time by will give you some more grip. But that ambient temperature, though, is still constant at 30 degrees.
Don't know if that ambient's going to change too much as Brian Beard gets passed by Aaron Morgan, at least for now. Barrett Rolfe still up there in 12th. Morgan into 15th. Past Beard for that 15th spot. So Beard has lost 11 positions. You know, at one point, Beard was looking wonderful. So much confidence he had in the early stages. Now very much struggling. As we work through this part of the race, I'm going to put my co-commentators on the spot here because I do like some of these liveries, and I do think we've got a splendid grid of cars here. Lorenzo, I'll start with you. What's your favorite of these liveries in the field here today?
All right, this is going to be interesting. You put me right on the spot, actually, like you said. I'm going to put a Ascari Autosport right here. I'm going to go with Barrett Rolfe. Or Lionheart Callisto. Both of them really look really good.
Callisto goes through his liveries at quite a rate of knots. So I do like this blue and black that's the 33 car. Let's take a look at Callisto up the road. Just in front of Henry Bennett in his British Racing Green. You can see not that blue machine that is pictured in set, but now he's got a white and blue car. Callisto floats with the wall a little bit. Justin, what about you here?
Good question, but the first driver who goes straight to my mind is Aaron Morgan, because he's running 15th. He is running, for those who don't know, a throwback to essentially Jimmy Johnson's Cup cars when he ran in his final years with Hendrick Motorsports before going off to the NTT IndyCar series. Morgan has become well known for tributing Hendrick Motorsports legends, whether it be Johnson when it comes to the IndyCar series or in the Speedway series, or he throws back to Jeff Gordon's Rainbow Warriors paint schemes. So Morgan finds these paint schemes and had some great designs for them. I like the design of Morgan to stick with the scheme and follow the number set to Arjuna to say, you know what? I've got the 48. May as well throw back to Jimmy Johnson, who made it a legendary number for at least in modern times.
No, that's true. I definitely think the numbers are more important than I think people realize, and I think maybe we need to start collecting some of these custom numbers to be able to show them off to our viewers here in this Lionheart IndyCar series.
Oh, I think he hit him.
Oh, was there contact there?
Yeah, I think he hit Barrett Rolfe in the left rear tire.
I take my eye off the screen for just one moment, and I think there's more damage. Oh, yeah, Morgan's car definitely slowing down. Let's go ahead and take a look at our RaceBot TV replay here, Justin.
And it comes through the exit of turn 4 in particular, because keep in mind, we mentioned Rolfe dealing with the struggles of the top-end speed. That speed has been continuously getting a bit worse and worse, upwards of half a second slower than the race leaders. Rolfe has been keeping that top line for the most part, and Morgan, he's just trying to run his normal line, gets air watch from the car in front, right there, just drips up right with the edge of the front wing into his left rear tire. Rolfe able to hold on to it. That checks him up. No harm, not too much foul.
I think they'll be okay. I think.
I think that was on the blind side, to be very honest, so it's a tough one.
It's about as close as you can get without incurring damage to your front wing there. I think Morgan might still be okay because he's still pushing the pace and now gets on past Barrett Rolfe in that Ascari Autosport machine. I'm torn on the liveries here. We'll scroll through some of them. You got the...
No bias.
I'm only slightly biased. I have the best IR18. It's just not on the grid here today. Chris Fowler's... I do like the Alcantech NHR cars. They've got different colors between their various teammates. Factory-backed always have some interesting ones. Robert Malechka doesn't seem to have it. Alexis Newsom there, you can see her number 53 car. When we get to the side, there's some cowboy stuff going on this car. Hopefully, if we ever talk to one of the factory-backed guys, they won't get us into trouble with our broadcast partners at ESTV in the future. That's the factory-backed car. I can't say my Adrenaline Motorsports teammates, even though Adam Blocker in that snapper blue does look quite dashing. There you can see the green Adrenaline cars, one of them being the Canadian Andrew Kinsella, one of them being Henry Bennett. I think it's this one. I do love a bit of bright pink. Phil Krause, of course, new to the series, has that bright pink. And here comes pit stops. Here comes the Alcantech NHR Esports car, Justin. 37 laps into his run. That is very early on.
He was leading a decent amount of laps, and I've noticed this once again with the last stint. You burn that extra bit more fuel by 3-4 laps, almost compared to some of the others who are staying in that single file line. So that could be a major factor for who ends up wanting to control this pack. And that's why I think, Arjuna, Blocker said, you know what, even though there's the benefit of being in the swap trap positioning, it's better to just stay in the line and be in the third car and allow them to swap, it seems. It's going to be interesting, though, how many get to 40 on the dot.
It is cooling down, which means more time on the throttle, more time on the throttle, more fuel being burned, less laps out there on track. That's the entire train of thought that I was trying to get out there. Kalisto is digging right now as well. To the outside he goes, uses the draft down in through turn 4. Might get the run on Blocker to get through into second. Not just yet. You can see left side of the screen. Kalisto works on to lap 38 of his run. Andrew Kinsella has dropped back in the pack, I think, as a result, needing to do some fuel saving. He's on to lap 40 as Barrett Rolfe, Mike Rasmas make their way down onto pit road. Just behind them, the Muscle Man is followed in by Alexis Newsom, Lorenzo.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we know Malechka is spinning. I think Blocker is spinning. But what impresses me is Kalisto's. Like, at one point I saw his car sliding towards the exit of turn number 2, and now Kalisto will go to lead while we see Malechka coming into the pit lane.
Blocker stays out there, though. This is crucial because this is where we have to do the commentator's math, which is always a dangerous proposition. As the temperatures cool off, Justin, we are going to get to the point as maybe looking at fuel runs of, maybe only 35 laps or so. We're at 110 to go. Some of these drivers might be on the edge who have already come down onto pit road.
Yeah, this could be intriguing for some of these numbers as Kinsella scratched into one car spinning.
And that pulls out the yellow flag. That was the 48 of Aaron Morgan. That changes the game because Malechka is now at the tail end of the field. The caution has come down at the worst possible time for him.
And it just looked like in my back peripheral view that Morgan, as soon as he started to turn it down the racetrack, Arjuna, just lost the back end and looped it around sideways down on the apron for the entry to pit road. And that definitely shakes things up in this running order. This will help a lot of drivers like Blocker and company. And to put it simply, it's essentially a two-stopper from this point forward, no matter how you slice it.
Here, oh, he loses it before he even transitions off the banking there. I wonder if maybe just locks up one of the tires or something there, JP.
It almost looked like he got a little bit maybe too much on the brake pressure as he tried to slow it down because he was going very deep.
Oh, you know what he's also done there, Lorenzo? He's over the seam, which when you're going fast is an issue, but not as much of an issue when you're trying to slow that car. You know, you've got the weight transfer going on as well. I just wonder if Morgan lost it over the seam there.
I think he did, in my opinion, to be very honest. And also, one thing that doesn't help might be how much on the weight jacker he might have been during the transition from the seam all the way down to the apron, which, of course, on the braking, the car gets a little bit light, of course, and when you do that, the rear can get a little bit loose during the entry, so that might have played into effect. But Maletka, it's interesting as we see the guys come to pit lane.
Oh, well,
it's a reverse situation of every speedway. Sorry,
you know who's in the best situation here? I think it's Andrew Kinsella, who would have got down onto pit road and into his box before the yellow flag came out. Joshua Chin had to roll himself through pit road without stopping because he hadn't slowed down and come across the line in time. Kinsella will cycle himself back to the front of the field, despite the fact that he extended that stint the longest, JP.
That's very impressive, and it just helps with the timing. Adam Frazier, we haven't talked about him all day either, just jumped up to third, who is on the same pit stop cycle as Kinsella and Maletka essentially in this race. In our words, this just fell into a couple drivers' laps. And now this is going to be intriguing how the restart plays out, because this is exactly what we were expecting. If things got towards this mark, we were expecting to get potentially pretty busy now with these higher speeds and poor track conditions that's now going to be tested here.
So Maletka is not one lap down. He has actually cycled about as perfectly as he would have wanted. Who is trapped at the end of the, I should say, almost one lap down, is going to they'll get the wave around. They'll be back to the tail end of the field. Will be Chris Fowler, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Barrett Rolfe, Mike Rasmussen, AJ Musselman, Alexis Newsom, and Matt Houston. Still looking at 19 cars on the lead lap, Lorenzo, but for Chris Fowler, he is going to be heartbroken because now he's got all that hard work to do again. It's getting cooler, though. It might still be on the cards.
It might be on the cards. Now, it's, I think Justin said perfectly, it becomes a mile race, you know, it might feel a mile race. It makes it longer on the pit stint and then tries to make the overcut or undercut, because we're probably going to go to green with 43 laps to go 53, 52 laps to go, depending on circumstances. So it's going to be an interesting race to break it down a little bit.
And it's not a fuel mileage race in that you have to save fuel to get to the end, Justin. It's about how do you now time up the pit stops? How do you execute on pit road properly?
Yeah, that's going to be the big discussion amongst all the drivers right now, because now with everyone, for the most part, equalized on their strategies, the main thing to think about, Arjuna, is for the second pit stop, how much fuel do you end up putting in and when do you end up coming in? Because if you're able to balance it out to where you don't lose time waiting for the tires with how much fuel you put in to get just enough, you're going to have a lighter car in theory. And we know how effective fuel burning can be under some of the cautions in the later stages of races. You want to have a bit of a lighter car to carry more straight line speed at the end of this race. So in our words, this is going to be intriguing to see how it plays out, but it all comes down to the execution and how the cautions now lay from here on out. Because let's put it this way, you get a caution, say, in about 10 laps, then it becomes a fuel mileage race and a half.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Well, 4 cautions on the day. The pace car hopefully makes its final trip back down onto the safety of pit road. Field is left in control of your pole sitter, Robert Maletka. We are racing once more in the ButtKicker US 500. It's a good start out front as they get themselves single file. Tony Schowen has already made the move on Phil Kraus on the edge of the top 10. Here comes a car that knocked down the wall earlier in the race, Lorenzo. Here comes Brian Beard.
Yeah, coming from the dead all the way up, Brian Beard. What a restart for Brian Beard so far, applying some pressure on Phil Kraus. Let's see if he can actually make that move stick.
Doesn't look like it for the time being as the fans get a great view of the action. Started with 30 Dallara IR18s. We are left with 22 of them still out there on track. In this second of the Triple Crown races, the second double points race of the campaign. Back and forth they go for the race lead. Malechka gets back past Kinsella. Frazier, you mentioned it, Justin, from nowhere to fighting for a podium. Plus 17, he's in third.
Got very lucky with the time of the caution flag, and for Frazier, this is going to be one of the biggest tests for him all season because Frazier isn't normally someone we see as a contender for the top 10 in a lot of cases, I will be honest, with how his season has fared out in various Lionheart competitions. Now it's going to be the matter, though, of can he stay up front and pick the lines properly, because as we've seen, you pick Ron here, you get freight trained in quickly, as has been the case for several more. Keep in mind, just 2 top 10s all season for points counting results for Frazier.
I mean, his best finish this season was 8th at Milwaukee. Only 1 top 5 across 33 starts for him. So this could be a benchmark performance for Frazier as he looks to try and kick on and improve himself. Harrington gets passed by Lionel Kalisto. That's crucial when it comes to that championship fight. Blocker is just down the road, Lorenzo. Blocker sits in 4th position.
And Blocker, again, sitting in a really good spot so far. You know, not a whole lot of pressure. Now up to 3rd position. And I think a guy I haven't really spoken about all this race, but now within top 5. What a race from Adam Frazier as well.
Trying to take a look at where Barrett Rolfe has fallen to, because he was the big mover early on. He's now only plus 4, riding in 17th position. Frazier looks to the inside, not all the way down to the yellow line just yet. I have a feeling as the track grips up, the weather gets colder and colder, we'll get closer and closer to painting that yellow line, minimizing your distance around this 2-mile track, the Michigan International Speedway. They're too wide, they're too deep. Frazier battling for 3rd.
And that might be a bit of a mistake for Frazier if he can't clear by the next corner, because here's the problem. You see it right there. Ryan Otis sees an opportunity, and now you've lost the top. So that is some of the mistakes where if you're not someone who has been running up front all race, you don't pick up that tendency at times unless you have the multiple preparation. Near squeeze for Kalisto, in fact, into the wall.
Frazier, I think, is getting a bit elbows out, knowing that another top 5 is on the cards, but not able to slide up into the line. He will dive it down to the inside to try and defend from the 97 car. Challenges the 17, slides up the track. Frazier drops out of the top 5.
And somehow, some way, he made that work at the end of the day, Kalisto. And Kalisto is, I looked prior to the to his pit stop when we got the yellow flag. He was one of those guys that was actually challenging on the outside of the very top of the lane, really grazing the wall. But really good restart right here with about 96 to 95 to
And Justin, you were taking a look further down the pack. Joshua Chin sits in 18th position, not a place we're accustomed to seeing the King of Chins riding. Almost looped it the last time around.
And that was in 1 and 2, and he was as high as 15th position before he clipped the apron, in fact, Arjuna, and sent him completely sideways, 45 degrees to the racing line. And we talked about how the grip is going to bring some cars lower and lower. That's a little too low in this regard, this time where he put nearly half the car underneath the yellow line, and at Michigan, that just does not work.
Watch it. Watch the car control here. Yeah. I talked about, who was it, Mike Rigney, that needs a change of pants. I think Joshua Chin will be the next one on that list, and maybe the Lionheart team can oblige him there. Chin now has Barrett Rolfe, Matt Houston, and Newsom for company. There are 2 seconds adrift from the cars in front. Lots of work for them to do there. Lorenzo, you've also remembered that for Chin, it's not the first disappointing run he's had in double points races in these Triple Crowns.
Yeah, because he had a really promising start to this to the Indy 500, but eventually had a few issues and drop back spots, basically dropping like a rock, and finished P24 at the Indy 500, and really unfortunate for the private label team Hype, and again, not with a really good outing so far.
Look at that though. Through turn 1, 10 cars separated by just 0.7 of a second. Might be looking at another photo finish here. Adam Blocker is the next car getting very, very racy, but Malechka pops himself back to the inside. Now have 3 adrenaline cars in the top 5. Kinsella, Blocker, and Bennett, 2nd through 4th. Here comes Connor Harrington, though, trying to upset the apple cart, Justin.
And he's got some help with a buddy in Phil Kraus, where I wouldn't be surprised if they try and line up and use each other to pass their way through the pack. But the first step of that is Harrington trying to leapfrog himself forward to the line, get a few cars up in trouble.
Oh, that's Ryan Otis that came together, I believe, with Tony Schowen, who's been ridden up into the wall. Oh, it's Lionel Callisto. We stay under green. Just about. I'm hearing more spinning in the background. There comes the yellow flag. Otis's car is stricken through turns 3 and 4.
I got AJ Molson and Mike Rasmus as well. I think Matt Houston got involved in this as well. So quite a big one over here, and we can see on the replay what happened.
It's Callisto and Otis. Those were the main 2 cars. Otis comes down the track, and Chris Fowler gets away with one. Otis slides back up, and oh, well, for Rasmus and Morgan and Beard, not much they could really do. And to be completely fair as well, Justin, once that car had taken on significant damage, there's not much Otis could have done either.
Yeah, because you see right there is where he hits some of the bumps with the seams, and the bumps just hook that car back in the racing line where everyone else is just trying to push on forward. Yeah, just no time to be able to react when you're not expecting the bumps to just bounce that car around like it did, to the point where it was where Brian Beard was actually trying to let cars go, Arjuna, because of his damage from earlier. Had just about completed that task, and then it just goes his opposite of directions in terms of luck. Bad lane.
Let's take one more look and see if we can pick up an aerial shot of the initial contact between Otis and Callisto. We might struggle to get one, you know, because just the way this thing plays out. The cars are down on pit road, by the way. We were talking about this being a fuel mileage race. That is well and truly the case now, but look at this here. We'll go super slow-mo. Callisto looks okay. I'm not sure if that's Otis or Callisto that's ultimately responsible, but not much room for Callisto really to go there, Lorenzo.
No, not at all. And the thing is, I think Callisto was trying to stick to the outside line and kind of force Otis on the inside, because I saw him actually do that, again, prior to the pit stop that we seen on the previous yellow flag, and he actually managed to do that. But it wasn't on turn 1 and 2. That was on 3 and 4. Here he's trying to do it on turn 1 and 2. But the thing is, you have Connor Harrington on the inside, and obviously would migrate nearly to the wall right there, and eventually caught Otis by surprise. So it's a tough one to judge right here.
And so it does make it a fuel mileage race. It will be, what, 89 laps to go, Justin, until we get to the green flag once more?
This time by, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple drivers top off with how difficult it was, with pace laps, mind you, to get to 43 the last time we got a full green flag run, 2 pit stops. In our words, this race just got flipped on its head, and it will be very difficult to be able to get yourself fully to a one-stop scenario, and those fuel maps might be very busy as a result. We have so many shades of the Speedway series, and Lorenzo can bring this up, where it's similar to what happened there. You had a caution flag or 2 early on in the race that set the tempo, set it up to where several drivers tried to save to get to 45 laps on the mark, and it took to the closing stages to see how things played out.
Yeah, it was insane because everybody basically was saving up to the I think the final yellow flag, and basically was a fuel mileage race all the way until the yellow flag, where I think caught some of the drivers that went into the pit stop basically by surprise, and I think it split up the field kind of like in half. and you took the chance of guys like, I think it was Matt Taylor, Matt Houston, some of the guys that were actually fighting for the win back there, and brought guys like Maletka, Newsom, and some others into the final laps of the race, basically fighting top 3, top 4, top 5 for the win, and it was a very interesting race in the end.
And that's the second incident today where 5 cars have been retired as a direct result of the contact. That is super speedway racing in a Dallara IR18. There's a reason we call them high banks here at Michigan when you go in the Dallara IR18. Definitely not high banks when you come here in a stock car. The speeds are intense, and decisions made in split seconds determine the outcome of your race. 5 cautions, 30 cars have been whittled down to the final 18 contenders. It's a fuel mileage race. We are racing once more in the ButtKicker US 500. Nice clean restart. Maletka the third is going to be swarmed by the teammates. Blocker, Bennett, Kinsella have some work to do to try and fend off the challenge, not just of Maletka, but the private label Team Hype Machine. Here comes Harrington around the outside, JP.
No one wanted to take the race lead on the bottom in 3 and 4, and Harrington's just saying, you know what? Give me that track position. Just absolutely blitzing by everyone else. Chris Fowler's trying to do the same in the heart of the pack.
They're 3 wide. That is risky at this point, given what we've just seen. Fowler gets checked up. Frazier down on the inside line, loses the position to Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Barrett Rolfe is being brought back into the mix. This is dicey. I'm getting scared, Lorenzo.
Oh my goodness, what a move from Fowler.
That was bold from Fowler to take full advantage. And you know what I think we're seeing from Adrenaline Motorsports here, Justin? I think fuel saving is at the forefront of their minds.
Exactly. I think right now they are trying to use the fuel maps and their various in-car tools to try and get to those marks. And this is causing absolute pandemonium to the errors who are probably thinking that this may get an error caution at this point. At least the way they're racing, this is getting dangerous.
I said I was scared. I'm getting increasingly scared as Barrett Rolfe almost turns Henry Bennett in the 07 machine. Luis Gonzalez Nunez is having a career run here today as he gets on past the Lionheart King, now up into 5th, plus 22 from where he started. Lorenzo, have you been doing the math on what these cars need to do? We'll try and get Lorenzo on the horn very, very shortly.
Okay, here I am.
There we go. He's been too busy doing the math.
I was finished with the calculations. If we started with 89, you have to make it. It's kind of like a must. 44 or 45 laps on your first stint, and then 45 or 44 laps on your second stint. This is basically full fuel gauge. That's why everybody didn't want to overtake on the restart of the race, because you don't know where you're going to end at the end of the day.
And one thing that's starting to be more of a concern, I think, rather than the fuel, Justin, is the fact that the track is getting increasingly dark. And I don't think Michigan has night lights.
Nope. Nope, Bob. It does not have lights, Arjuna. So this is going to be where you need to think about visibility if it gets to that point.
Maybe we need headlights on the front of these Dallara IR18s. I'm not sure if the pit crew can fit that, though, in just a 10-second fuel window. As Nunez hits the front for the first time in his Lionheart IndyCar Series career, he's taken advantage of all of that carnage and chaos, but I don't think necessarily he's as aware of the fuel number that needs to be hit. Harrington has slowed his charge. He's running around in 3rd position. I do think 46 laps is possible. It is right on the edge of things, Lorenzo, but it might still be possible. You use the fuel maps, you use the cars in front of you. It might be you splutter across the line, but ultimately you take the checkered flag.
It is very possible, and it looks like that way because nobody's being overly aggressive. You know, everybody's trying to clutch back and try to stay within the other guys' job. But there are some dudes over here that I'm looking. For example, Aaron Morgan, the 48, he's in 12th place, 26 laps within his stint, so he's going to go for a 2-stop nevertheless. But he can actually make the privilege of whenever he goes for the first stop, he can actually be more aggressive and not care about fuel saving as the other guys are actually carrying.
Kraus battles with Barrett Rolfe, who has taken full advantage of his second chance to work his way back up into the top 10. Of course, we saw Rolfe with some side damage. Had slowed his charge. Still has potential chance of a victory here. Double points on the line. Of course, crucial in our championships. Nunes has backed off very slightly now. The pace has gone to a 33.5. Fastest laps in the race, Justin, 32.495. It's hard to really say just how much these cars are now focusing on the fuel strategy.
I'm looking at the speeds in particular. They're running 6 to 10 miles per hour slower in the corners than they were earlier on. And at the end of the straightaways, they're only peaking over 225 miles per hour in some cases, compared to the 230 in the heart of the draft. So, at the very least, the speed and tempo has slowed drastically to try and save that extra bit of fuel. That doesn't stop others from saying, give me some positions if they want to get some more insurance track position-wise. But here's the problem. If you push too hard, you're not going to hit that number. If you lead too many laps, you're not going to hit that number. It's a case of somebody needs to lead in a race where everybody wants to be in the draft.
Adam Fraser is going to lose a whole heap of positions, I think, at least for the time being. Rolfe around the outside. Jason Brophy almost flirts with disaster. He's still one lap down, it should be noted, but Brophy has recovered at least a 17th position, which is much more promising than it was looking for him earlier on. Blocker and Bennett, they are falling back. I think they are the guys who I'm watching out for right now. Just listen to the sound of the engines go, but look at these track conditions, Justin. Now down to 36 degrees Celsius.
And a reminder, when we first looked at them during the early stage of the race, it was up as high as 46 degrees Celsius. That's a 10-degree drop throughout this event so far, with the day and the sun continuing further along. But look towards the front again. It seems we're back towards that pack racing with some of these drivers wanting to make some passes here. I'm not quite sure if you still want to make these moves at this point. It's to where people are trying to lap themselves.
Jason Brophy almost runs into his teammate as they work 3 abreast through turns 3 and 4. I think Brophy knows he's not in a position to take some good points here. He's just got to try and help his teammate out. If he can get in front of Connor Harrington, Lorenzo, he'll be able to really assist with the draft, and Brophy gets himself past.
Not only that, if he gets his lap, like he's within the lead lap, and everything can kind of change for Brophy, you know. But this is a very interesting race so far. This is a very unique race that I'm actually covering right now.
The only slightly disappointing thing, at least from my perspective, is started with 30 very strong competitors. It is now down just, if you include Brophy, who's technically on the lead lap, 17 cars. And any of them, hypothetically, could come out on top in what should be a firecracker of a race. And Justin, I think Brophy's basically said with that charge through the field, I want my lap back. I need to be in the right position if things go green to the end.
Keep in mind, he for sure has a 2-stop situation regardless of how you slice it for Brophy, because he had to take the wave to get to 1 lap down. In our words, he is hoping these drivers get involved in trouble in what is turning into an intriguing final 75 laps.
This is the ButtKicker US 500, the second Triple Crown event in the 2021 Lionheart IndyCar Series career. 74 laps to go here on RaceSpot TV. We'll be right back to conclude this race. Welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of round 14 of 2021 Lionheart IndyCar Series. It's the second Triple Crown event of the season. It's the ButtKicker US 500. Delighted you could join us on RaceSpot TV and on ESTV as we continue this roller coaster of a ride that has been the 2021 season. My name is Arjuna Kangipati. Delighted to be joined by Justin Prince and Lorenzo Bonda in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth. Live timing powered by our partners at ATVO. RaceSpot.tv/Indy to follow along with your favorite team and drivers. Justin, it is a fuel mileage race to the end. It's a race that no one wants to lead now. It was a chaotic restart the last time we went back to the green, but since then it's strung out very slightly. It's gone in single file once more. It's 68 laps to go.
Well, just as you say that, it's starting to get side by side up front again, but this is where you need to hit those numbers if you want any sort of shot of winning. You put yourself in a situation of a two-stop, you're in a situation where you may not be able to come away with a checker flag and close up the amount of pit delta, in some cases around this racetrack, of 40-50 seconds once you include the aprons. This is where you need to save, and the saving has been pretty critical throughout this run. It's a little bit quicker pace compared to before by a couple tenths, but the pace of saving is still there. It's getting helped a little bit by Brophy trying to hope for a caution flag, though.
Bennett almost slides up into the line of Chris Fowler there. This is just on the edge of the top five. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, whose best finish of the season came in our season opener. That was 8th from the Homestead Miami Speedway. Now runs in 5th, searching for his first top 5 in his IndyCar career. Lorenzo, you've been doing the math. Give us that update from pit road.
So it looks like that everybody's done 24 laps of the sprint, so they have to go at least 20 laps more, or 21 laps more, but it looks like Brophy is going to pit stop right here. It's kind of expected to see Brophy's on 40 laps, so he's kind of like to be counted out over here. But everybody bar Nunez and Joshua Chin are on 45 laps within the lead lap. Aaron Morgan on 42, so he has to come down the pit lane kind of out of the equation. He has to come with a yellow flag, so it is a full-on mode 5, save fuel up until maybe lap 45, 44.
I have a feeling, Lorenzo, that Chin is on the same lap number as everyone else, but maybe just because he qualified poorly, shows us 1 lap longer because, of course, he would have pitted before he crossed the line. I think that explains why he's indicated as 1 lap longer. Don't necessarily think that's the case. Jason Brophy in that yellow. He said it's Dayglow, but let's be honest, it's a yellow private label Team Hype machine. Comes down onto pit road for the penultimate time today. He will drop 1 lap behind the rest of the field. In fact, he might drop technically 2 laps behind because, of course, he's now 1 lap, and of course it's a pretty lengthy trip down on pit road. Does mean that his teammate Connor Harrington has slipped to 10th position, Justin, but I don't think that's awful. I think he's focusing on the number that he's got to hit.
Yeah, right now, I think he's more so just trying to stay at least together with Philip Kraus, get those numbers together, and play the field game. Joshua Chin is also in that grouping as well, so it's pretty clear that's a team game. They want to be paired together. They want to work together in regards to that pit stop number. So in our words, don't be surprised if all 3 of them come down together, if not try and group together, Arjuna, after pit stops once we get to the green flag cycle. Because right now, that's how it's appearing based on the team strategies and how things are lining up here.
Plenty of drivers having their best runs of the campaign. Someone like Matt Houston, whose best finish is 13th on the season so far. Definitely has a top 10, if maybe a little bit more on the cards for him. Average finish on the season is 18th spot as we work our way through this run. And I think Aaron Morgan is proving here, Lorenzo, that you can run long if you want to. 46 laps and counting. Of course, there has been a couple of cautions to extend his run.
Yeah, but that basically can cut like in half, going 31 laps with the spin, so he can go really, really fast. I want to see if he comes down into pit lane. He has a signal if he's coming down or not into his pit stall. No, he actually is going to go for 47 laps here. But you know what's more interesting for me? That Brophy is going for the lead and trying to take his lap back again.
Well, he's trying to take a lap back, it should be said. He is 2 laps down technically. Now he's cleared himself. He is still 1 lap down. This is where I start to get a little bit concerned. I don't know about you, Justin, but when you are a solitary lap down, I understand the need and the desire to get your lap back. But he's clear now, but if he had been dropped a little bit further back in the pack, that would have been a lot more risky for him to try and dice his way back to the front, because even when these cars come down like Aaron Morgan has just had to do, he is still, 1 full lap behind the rest of the field.
Yeah, at the very least, it's very concerning, more so I think for Brophy, knowing he's in a spot where he needs, well, everybody to pit, him to cycle back with the front, him to in turn cycle back a lead lap and then get a caution flag before it gets to that point where he has to pit a second time. That's the only play right now. He gets a caution right now, he's back to square one where he'd need another one if you think about the fact he'd probably take the wave in that situation. So in our words, there's a lot of things probably going through Brophy's mind right now, and a lot of panic in some cases, but you have to be able to control said panic. For everyone else, they're saying thank you very much. I'm just going to ride behind you in your draft if you're going to be so kind to give up the lead car in the draft.
That's what Robert Malechka is doing now. Actually losing a bit more time than I thought he would be. So Malechka, Harrington, and Chin, that's the group that is now half a second adrift of the top 10. Chin, of course, who has not necessarily run around the front of this race. He's been trying to just roll his way to a good finish and just try and get through some of the carnage that he expected. And carnage, it has been 2 separate incidents that took out 5 cars at the very least. As Mike Rigney's had an issue. Mike Rigney has reset back to pit road. Fortunately, no caution intervention, and I think this was exiting pit lane here. Straight to the RaceSpot TV replay machine, and watch this. He gets into the grass for a moment, then on the apron, he's just between the banking, spins it up the track. Very, very lucky, Lorenzo, to not get the caution back out.
Yeah, because everybody else had gone by, and masterfully he got back to the pits because he really don't want to trigger a yellow flag at this point of the race.
That wouldn't have been a fun conversation, I think, in the post-race paddock, to say the very least.
Put it mildly.
Here we go then, final 56 laps, entering into the crucial pit stop window. I just wonder who's been doing the saving the best. You can see 34 laps and counting for this entire field. If we give them another 6, they'd still have 50 to go, and 40 laps has kind of been an average fuel run. The math that Lorenzo did, it's a tough one. That's a tough proposition for some of these cars to deal with. And Justin, the good thing is, for some of these competitors, they won't have to do the math by themselves. They'll have a spotter, they'll have an engineer talking in their ear, helping them through and coaching them on the number they need to hit lap after lap.
And that's a good point, too, because definitely know there's a lot of people watching along. You have drivers who may be out of the race still spectating. That can help their respective teammates plan things out. On their offhand, you have Joshua Chin, for example, working with Andrew Wood in their respective camp of the 93 machine. Brian Otis has David Rodriguez, who we know came away with a big victory at Iowa before when he started Lionheart Retro Series competition a few weeks back in August. So you have some pretty smart competitors and very smart strategists helping out for this respective series. It's just going to be the matter, though, of will it stay green? And is the math correct? Because you do not want to get the math wrong. We've seen in many cases, at the top levels even, of iRacing competition, where the math ends up being wrong, and then you're told the dreaded message, oh, by the way, we're a lap and a half short with 5 to go.
Yeah, that happened to me in Lionheart competition multiple times.
Not surprised at all, Junior.
Lorenzo, fired.
Well,
hashtag
I guess I'm fired. At least I got a championship in Indy, bro. So I'm good.
full of pride for that national title that you do indeed have. Yeah, I have some bad luck with trusting my automatic fuel calculations. Of course, you've got all sorts of programs that will help you out there. I blindly have trusted mine just a couple of occasions too often. Brophy still pacing at the front is really, I think, helping the likes of Barrett Rolfe, who has charged his way back to the front. And who'd have thunk it, Justin? I mean, given what we saw early on, I am very, very surprised that Rolfe has been able to get that car back to the lead of the field and is looking in control at this point in time.
Well, with everyone else slowing down their pace, the damage isn't really a factor because everyone else is going 5 to 10 miles per hour slower either way. So his deficit down in the straight lines and some of the speed scrubbed in the corners is not as big. Here's the part that I'm keeping my eye on, though. Aaron Morgan is now getting himself in the conversation of drivers trying to unlap themselves. So now you have 2 cars feeding dirty air to the lead lap cars.
Here we go then. About to hit that magic number, 100 miles to go. Kinsella has taken over the point now. Has the Canadian saved enough fuel as Blocker pops himself out of line, challenging his adrenaline teammate Tony Schowen as a car down on the apron. Who was that? Who was going very slowly? I think it was Lionel Calisto. My eyes do not deceive me. There's Blocker. He's already past Schowen. Now looks to get past Nunez. Nothing doing now. Gives the run back to Schowen Lorenzo.
Yeah, he has to give the run back to Schowen and to not lose the toe. And here's the thing, now it's kind of like a race of where you position yourself going to the pit lane. I think Justin put it perfectly when we actually got into the green flag, before the green flag. So getting yourself slowing down into the pit lane and then calculate yourself where you want to be when you come out of the track is going to be the talk of the town whenever we go into the pit stop in about 3 or 4 laps.
And we're going to know who has done the saving and who knows what they have to do, right? Because this first stint has really been experimentation. Hit that 46 lap number and understand what you need to do to still be able to fight potentially side by side across the line. So 41 laps and counting, 5 laps to go before these cars down onto pit road. Blocker now all the way down to the yellow line. That's what we expected to happen as the track cooled further and further. And in terms of track conditions here, JP, you can see 36 degrees on the track.
It's stable compared to before, but again, the clouds are settling above this racetrack, which impacts how quick the cars are going. The cooler it goes, the faster they go in. One driver is not going to make that mark for sure. Barrett Rolfe has just indicated over the radio he plans to come in.
I did wonder if the Ascari Autosport driver was not doing the right thing by staying out front. Low line for the 33 car, slows himself down. Off the banking he comes. It's tricky, this pit entry, especially with such low downforce, but no lockups. The 33 car rolls its way down. He will require an additional pit stop unless he's got that magic fuel growing tree in his fuel tank. Of course, we saw David Rodriguez have that at the Retro Series race at Iowa, playing a fuel strategy few thought achievable. Next car's down. Chris Fowler from 7th will come in from the Alcantech NHR Esports team. I think Luis Gonzalez Nunez looks like he was going to follow. He'll stay out there on track. Oh, that's a big lockup from Alexis Newsom, but she slows it down in time. 2 cars onto pit road.
Yeah, massive send causing that lockup indeed for Newsom. We've seen how big the send attempt was for Morgan before. For Newsom, that was a lockup of a good 100, 200 feet. But more calls for pit stops this time by over the radio, and this is to where it's 45 to go this time.
This is the magic lap, I think. Frazier's already slowing that car down. He's coming in. Who follows him in? Looks like Nunez got a little bit wiggly on the exit of turn 4. Puff of smoke from both of those cars. Down to pit road. So we think all the rest of these cars still out there and circulating should be good, Lorenzo. Of course, they had 1 lap under caution. They can extend that lap, extend this run 1 more lap. They should definitely be good. The question is then, how much can they fight when we get to the checkered flag?
It's going to be an interesting one because once we go next time by, it's going to be 44. If they can stretch it out to maybe 43 laps to go, then maybe they can dream of they might have a lap here and there of caution to try to go maybe a different mode of fuel and fight it out to the end, but it's still a fuel mileage race of sorts. So it's going to be an interesting one who carries down this to the very brim of their fuel gauge.
Matt Houston down onto pit road, 44 to go. It'll be 43 at the line. Who's indicating this time around? I think Harrington is throwing himself to the inside. He's not coming down necessarily. He's just getting more aggressive. No, he's coming down. Early call, trying for the undercut, but we've seen Justin the overcut being a bit more strong here. It's going to be a long stop for Harrington.
Especially with the effects of the draft kept up. So for Harrington, he'll need to cycle into a good position. Here's the counterpoint. A majority of the drivers here are also making their calls for pit stops this time by. And now it gets very intriguing because for all these cars who have been able to extend it, they still have to save a decent bit. But it's not as much compared to those who had 4 laps or so. In fact, a lot of these cars are going to be just about at the 40 to go mark.
Kinsella's down, Shawin's down, Chin is down. And I wonder if maybe we'll see the undercut be a bit stronger here because these cars going a bit slower in the pack. It's a give and take, I would say. And fresh tires will aid Connor Harrington as here comes 3 cars for that final time. Harrington has released himself just behind Adam Frazier. Chris Fowler about half a second down the road. So now we wait and see. Kinsella, Chin, and Shawin. The Canadian releases himself off of pit road as Phil Krause, Adam Blocker, Henry Bennett, Robert Malechka enter onto pit road. But this is crucial. Where does Kinsella feed in comparison to the likes of Barrett Rolfe and Chris Fowler? Those two blow on past. It's Frazier who's next in line. Harrington will sweep around the outside as well. But those cars have some more fuel saving to do, Lorenzo.
Yeah, they do, and everybody comes out the pit lane, and Krause misses his pit box a little bit, so he's going to lose precious time compared to the other drivers in the pit stall.
Not the first time he's done that in this IR18. It is tricky. I've said that. Low downforce. Race off of pit road. Blocker in front of Malechka. Where will they feed out in comparison to Rolfe? You saw him just sweeping around turn number 1 as the cars release themselves off of pit road. There goes Fowler. There goes Frazier. Kinsella will slot in just behind his teammate. He'll go over under. Harrington is behind his main championship rival, Justin.
And now this gets really intriguing, I think, as this plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if Harrington, later on in this run in particular, if he builds up enough for a run, is going to pounce. But it's Barrett Rolfe who's at the net front position of these cars, with Aaron Morgan still in a very different strategy, needing a caution to have any sort of shot to win this race now.
Now I'm curious. If you're Blocker, what do you do?
You go aggressive, I think. The cars thunder their way in towards turn number 3. It is still a 13-car fight, I think, for the race lead here. And I think strategy is still going to play a factor. It's easier to say, but now that we've got the track conditions so much cooler from where we started, positioning yourself and being at the right place at the right time so you can save fuel at the start, attack at the end, that is what experience helps you with, Justin. It is what the cars and the drivers would have been doing in the first stint, that last stint, downloading data, analyzing it, thinking about what you can do, knowing what the numbers are, and applying that in this final 39 laps, 38 laps this time around to the checkered flag.
And that includes being able to save your stuff, whether it's the fuel or whether it's the tires, which have been a bit of a talking point with some of the difficulties with grip levels, them getting tighter and tighter off corner exits with this core track temp. Now it's going to be the fairing factor, though, of does that experience in turn lead to the execution? In a lot of cases, yes, because right now, Rolfe and Kinsella, they're just in the patient spot of riding along, but on very different strategies. For Blocker, comparing that to them, Blocker's essentially in leapfrog mode, it looks like.
Well, the one thing we know is Barrett Rolfe is in a very difficult and uncomfortable position. He's already 10 laps into this one. He would need to extend the run to an insane 47 laps while leading, not even while being in the pack. Chris Fowler is also not in an optimal position. Neither is Adam Frazier. I think Blocker, Bennett, Malechka, those are the cars that have the least fuel to save. Kinsella's in a good spot as well. I have no idea, Lorenzo, how this one is going to go.
I don't either, and I think everybody knows that Rolf is the guy within the lead lap. He's the longest within, maybe top 10. Of course, Nunez is within the top 10 as well. But if you're Kinsella, do you go for the overtake on Rolf and know that he's saving fuel like crazy? Of course not. This is basically a chess game at the very top level. So it's going to be a very interesting one how to break this all down, of course. Everybody's still following one another. I'm really eager to see what the final 10 laps of this race will bring.
Alexis Newsom has peeled off onto pit road, continuing her disappointing day. She knocked the wall down early on. Still looks like she might still get a top 15 to show for this Triple Crown event where double points are on the line. Tony Showen has powered. First past Luis Gonzalez Nunez, then past Connor Harrington. Next target will be Adam Fraser as we jump on board with the ButtKicker on board and ride around with the Iowa native. 34 laps to go here. There's Newsom rolling off of pit road. And it's interesting, Justin, to see that despite the fact that we're single file, they're still basically all running around in dirty air, which is not what you usually see in the Solara IR18.
Usually you're scanning around the racetrack trying to find clean air to be able to get proper grip for the corners, save the tires, cool the tires in particular, because that air wash can overheat your front tires in particular, cause you to get very tight by riding on behind, and it becomes a major factor as the race goes on. In some cases, tire percentages, depending on the various different types of races, could be as much as 10 to 20%. But now it's essentially the necessary evil, almost, it looks like, for these drivers. I'm still shocked, though, that Barrett Rolfe is trying to still hold on to this lead group. Unless he gets a caution, he is in a dangerous, dangerous spot here, to the point where Aaron Morgan and Jason Brophy pulled away by a few seconds before Morgan peeled off this past time by.
Either that
Justin,
or...
real quick. Sorry, I was just going to say, if you're better, Rolfe, do you lift up the gas and try to and let Kinsella go past, even though that Kinsella knows that you have more lap? He's not going to do that.
Yeah, if anything, you can see it there. They're trying to snake each other. If anything, Barrett Rolfe saying, if it goes green, I want to make sure I hold on at very least the track position. Or rather, if you get a caution flag at one point, guess who's in the race lead with the clean air?
Well, Barrett Rolfe might also be doing a rain dance. It's a little bit early. No rain yet on the iRacing service, but you never know. That might be what he needs to try and get the race win here. Either that or a caution, because it is getting darker and darker here in Michigan. I mean, what time is it? It is, what, 6:30 almost? No lights on the track. I wonder how difficult it is for some of these drivers to see out there, Lorenzo. Let's jump on board with Henry Bennett and the 07 machine.
I think the majority of the drivers that drive these kind of Indy cars are not used with this very late transition. Of course, it does happen from time to time, but not on a track that you do not have artificial daylight. There is no posts around Michigan International Speedway to showcase you can do night racing. So it's going to be a really tricky one to get within basically dusk hours and still trying to see the track properly.
So we're looking at a 14-car battle on the lead lap. Aaron Morgan not in this leading pack, so really he's out of the equation. The likes of Joshua Chin, plus 10 on the day. Biggest mover still Barrett Rolfe, but don't think he's going to hold that position as we come to the end of this race, as they're starting now to get a little bit more aggressive. Robert Malechka III looks to the inside of Henry Bennett. Nothing doing, at least there. Matt Houston getting aggressive with Adam Fraser is just behind them. Tony Showen is side by side with Connor Harrington, at least for a moment. They are getting racier, Justin, but there's still a long way to go. I wonder when the likes of Blocker will go on the attack here.
I think, again, Blocker, if you're him, the attack has to start coming at about 10 laps to go. Set things up. Be able to get yourself a big enough run and leapfrog the drivers one by one by corner entry so you do it efficiently. He's been doing it more methodically this run, where he's had a couple opportunities if he so chose to go to the inside, but the problem is he's not close enough to get the actual job done by the apex. And that's why I think Blocker's being patient. For some of these error cars who are in the midst of aero wash, they're taking an opportunity to say there's a bit of a checkup, say, on the outside like we've seen all day, and just trying to pass by everyone else when they lift off the gas in the comparison to Houston. I think somebody just scraped the wall, though, amongst your top competitors, and it might have been amongst that grouping we're just keeping an eye on.
Might have been Shawan, but I'm not 100% sure. I did notice in the YouTube chat, David Rodriguez saying, can they make it on fuel? David, only if you shared with one of those guys the magic of how you save the fuel in Iowa. Not 100% sure, but we'll have to wait and see. They're getting racier, though. I think that is the least that we can say. Here comes the run from Malechka. Powers past Henry Bennett. Does Kraus follow through? No, he doesn't. Just behind them, Tony Shawan slips on past Matt Houston. Now trying to attack Adam Frazier. This is where I think cars have realized it is go time, because 10 to go might be a good point. But Lorenzo, we must not forget, this is a race that has finished under caution twice in series history. The magic number is about 5 to go. You cannot afford to leave your attack that late.
No, you cannot. I think Malechka, what he's doing right there is right on the money, as Barrett Rowe might get a little bit of a second life right here because he got overtaken by Blocker, Kinsella, and also Malechka. Even though Blocker got a little bit loose on the outside of turn number 2 on the exit. But Malechka kind of do what he did in Speedway Series of sorts, you know, getting a little bit racier towards the end of the race, not kind of with the yellow flag. And the quick thing about the Speedway Series, he finished the race, his car actually stopped right in the middle of the track because it had no fuel more to give.
I'm pretty sure that's the margins we're looking at here. I have no doubt about it. We will wait and we will see. It will be 23 laps, 46 miles this time around, and the challenge is coming. Here comes Adam Blocker all the way down to the yellow line. He's trying to slip on past Barrett Rolfe. I think Rolfe is in a very uncomfortable situation right now because can't afford to slide too far back, JP. He also can't afford to go too hard too early.
Absolutely, and this is where drivers, I think, may try and take advantage of all this, try and get him to shuffle about, panic a little bit, get him out of his rhythm. And right now, this is exactly what I'm talking about, this side-by-side to where Rolfe is trying to almost squeeze that right rear tire almost a touch bit down the straightaway.
Looking rearwards from the race leader, and I'm just saying, I probably shouldn't say it, let's be honest. And if Rob doesn't win, he's not going to be happy that I pointed it out right now. I picked Rob. My pick is still on the cards. We'll wait and see how it shakes out, but I'm glad that at least I'm turning my streak around. Rolfe is still side by side with Kinsella. Kinsella slides up the track as he gets a little bit loose. Henry Bennett back and forth he goes as he tries to get on past first his teammate and also the Rolfe machine in that 33 car. Adam Blocker running the high line. Phil Kraus right behind. There are plenty of strong cars here. Saving tires, saving fuel, getting ready to go. Bennett has gone... Sorry, Justin. Bennett's gone up high this time.
Yeah, trying to get the clean air on the front wing, but I was about to say there, Arjuna, sorry, was with some of the drivers, the way they're making the moves, you have to think about this, and I think some of the drivers who are helping the various teammates may notice this too. If your drivers like Malechka III or drivers like Philip Kraus right now trying to dive to the bottom, that's kind of a sign of saying they feel confident at the very least they are going to make it. So in our words, it seems more and more drivers are getting that green light and starting to push the panic button.
Kinsella goes. Kinsella's going for the lead. I think Malechka's comfortable. Clearly, Kinsella's comfortable too. Side by side they work. Kinsella still having those technical issues. Rolfe splits the difference, goes down the middle. Kraus makes a strong move as well. 20 laps to go. Things are heating up here, Lorenzo.
Yeah, things are heating up, and Rolfe with that bold move on the entry of turn number 3, going 3 wide, and we're going to see 3 wide again. Looks like it on turn number 1.
It's almost 3 wide, too deep for a moment there. Kraus is going to get a little bit squirrely on the inside. Malechka, Rolfe, Kinsella, and Bennett squabbling for third. Has Rolfe timed this perfectly, though? He was the one that had the longest distance to go. He's also the one who is not backing down at this point in time. I still wonder, Justin, he's just hoping for that caution to close things off.
At the very least, they would make sure everyone's safe on fuel. That's definitely the back of your mind. But it seems everyone else who's in that cycle of trying to save, with the speeds being down on the back straightaway in particular, 5 more miles per hour than the last time we checked, to the 220 mark for a majority of these drivers. There's a lot more confidence now for these fuel marks, and the bottom line at the very least, showing major importance here with the way Malechka III does not want to give up that apron.
But watch here. Watch the run that Bennett gets. Is it good enough? Is it good enough to get past Rolf? No, it's not. So I think you're right. Low line's where you want to be. 3 wide and side by side just behind. It's almost 3 wide as Kinsella will sling it down the inside. Joshua Chin has rocketed up in towards 7th position as well. All sorts of chaos in terms of driver standings, in terms of team standings. Things in this double points race could be blown wide open. Blocker must be getting nervous at this point, Lorenzo. He's sitting there in 6th spot.
He is sitting there in 6th spot and not looking good. Watch out for him to make a move. Now Rolf getting a little bit aggressive. Now Kraus getting a little bit aggressive. It's tough to break it all down. I think Blocker wants to have a little bit of breathing room to go. Oh my god.
This is dicey, and I'm getting nervous once more. It's been about 100 laps since I was this nervous. Christian Horner foot tap going on right now. Can only imagine the nerves for these drivers and for series organizer George Anzaldo. Kinsella slides up the track, almost gets into the path of Rolf. In front of him, though, Bennett has saved his fuel. The 007 that he runs in other series in the middle as Kraus comes on strong around the outside line. Still, 13 cars with a chance of victory with 15 laps to go.
They're really playing with fire with the way they're racing here. How about 3 wide again down the back straightaway? Something's got to give, though, with some of these moves where they're being as the most aggressive they've been all race long. None of them are giving anything in terms of space for the most part.
Connor sends it 3 wide. That's a good spot. He gets on past Adam Blocker. That is crucial. Blocker is outside of the top 5. His streak that dates back to September of 2020 might be coming to an end. But Kraus is the one that's looking the most aggressive right now. He's got the run down the back straightaway, entering turn 3. He will squeeze the green and red card to the inside of the corner. Malechka's hanging on. That inside line is looking comfortable. They'll come across the line. Malechka, Bennett, and Kraus, the top 3, Justin.
And Harrington taking his opportunity to say, this is my chance, especially with Philip Kraus up there as a teammate to try and work with. But some of these air drivers I'm noticing are starting to back off a little bit with how crazy it's getting. How about near 3 wide again down the backstretch?
3 wide is a constant at this point in time. Kraus is looking comfortable, still squeezes Bennett just that little bit more. Rolf has been shuffled to 6. I wonder if at the very least that will help him to get to the end of the race. Blocker, Kinsella, and Rolf, they were 3 wide for a moment. Blocker, I think, is just riding around knowing he can't afford for his championship hopes to go up in flames here today. He'll be missing at least one of the upcoming races in the month of September. Harrington has the run this time around. He's not going to be able to force it 4 wide, but I think 4 wide isn't too far away, Lorenzo.
Oh, and Kraus and Kinsella touched.
It was the slightest of contact. Kinsella will slide it up into 3rd position. There goes Blocker, takes advantage, back up into the top 5.
I think Blocker is still strategizing right here. I think he's trying to save the tires up to the final push of the race and then trying to get a little bit more racing. Because he's lifting up the gas a little bit into the start-finish line, and Rolf, I think, grazed the outside wall. Things are that was breaking
out front.
Kind of go.
Out front, Bennett almost cleared Malechka. Malechka hangs on by the thinnest of margins. He slides up the track. He forces Bennett up to about the 3rd groove. My word, 10 laps, 20 miles to go in a race that's had everything. 4 wide, Connor Harrington to the race lead.
And right on cue, Harrington's been waiting for that opportunity. Is this going to stick, though, with how tight they're racing?
He forces Kinsella at the very least to give things up. He'll lose the momentum. Malechka back to the point of the field. Kinsella is riding up high, knowing that That might be his ticket if something happens down low to come on through. Barrett Rolfe, his chances of victory are done. He's down on pit road, Lorenzo.
Yeah, he's down on pit road, but it's all how they break this all down top 10, because this is way too interesting to call.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez, his hopes of a top 10 have come to an end. He's up into the wall. I'm losing my words right now. I am just hoping and praying things stay clean, as this time it's Blocker who throws it down to the inside of the track. 3 wide for third position. Kraus hangs on. Harrington has dropped now to 6th position. Moving and shaking. It's Malechka, it's Bennett out front. Here comes Kraus once more, JP.
And again, trying to get the outside line of work, taking whatever runs that come to him. He is not waiting whatsoever for those opportunities. Some traffic coming out right in front of them too may play a touch bit of a factor. Plus they have the slow car and Nunez, who is on the apron. They have to try and dodge here. Now you have to wait for the right run to be able to time things on up. And the question is going to be, when does Blocker say, you know what, let's go for it?
Malechka is sliding up the track more and more, exiting turn 4. He is losing the ability to hang on to that low line. He is clear this time around. Does Bennett get the run? Can Bennett get to the inside this time around? Nunez has parked it. Issues for him. He has come down onto pit road. Bennett has lost out. Kraus will power around the outside right now. Malechka clear as we come through turns 3 and 4. The lap traffic. It's Barrett Rolfe, Lorenzo.
It's Barrett Rolfe, and it's going to be, I think, the best case scenario for Malechka right now, because he can get closer, try to stretch it out the field, not allow Phil Kraus or Henny Berry to get closer. So it's going to be an interesting one. But the thing is,
Kraus around the outside. Kraus to the race lead. He has powered around the outside. He has taken that lead. Malechka got a bobble. Kinsella's trying to take advantage. To the inside, the Canadian goes battling for second spot. They're coming up on Barrett Rolfe, and this might end in tears.
This could be very tricky. Kraus utilizing that draft to try and get around. We'll see if he's utilized as a pick, though, through all of this. With 5 laps to go, we're slowly approaching the point of no return. Another move to the high side.
10 miles left on our race board. Kraus almost got below the apron there. Bobbles. Malechka re-inherits the race lead. My word, these two cars breaking away as a result of that lap traffic. Bennett gets on past Rolfe. Kinsella will follow. Harrington will be the next in line. Adam Blocker, Lorenzo, down to 7th spot.
Down to 7th spot behind Tony Schoen, and has to overtake Barrett Rolfe. You can see this nagging between Malechka and Kraus. This is getting insane.
Insanity here in Michigan. It is a track known for its high speeds. It's a track known for chaos. Robert Malechka back down to the inside. He's controlled the last 10 or 15 laps. Can he control the next 4? Bennett around the outside, looking to power his way to HyperX victory lane. They're 3 wide. It's still Malechka in control, JP.
This is getting very, very intriguing and very, very dangerous with some of these weavings and bobbles. How about 3 wide again, though, for the lead? Something's got to give here again. We're at the point of return now. Next flag ends the race.
Will it be the caution? Will it be the checkered? We know which way we want it to end. Kraus so close to victory from Phillip Island on debut. Bennett, though, around the outside. Can he power his way into the race lead? Kraus and Malechka, they almost get to blows. Malechka holds on. It is 2 laps. It is 4 miles left to go. Malechka does contact with Kraus. The 91 car in through the grass from pole position to heartbreak for Robert Malechka III. We stay green, though. It is 4 miles left to go, JP.
And Kinsella nearly wrecked as well, just about gone in the back lane of Kraus. And now it's a full-out battle between Kraus, Bennett, and Blocker now has a great shot.
And Blocker bided his time. He knew that if he waited, it would be there. Kraus, Bennett, Blocker. A 3-car breakaway. Harrington has slid his way up into 4th. White flag in the air. 2 miles left to go in the second Triple Crown race in the 2021 Lionheart IndyCar Series. Who will it be? Kraus, Bennett, or Blocker? We will find out. We will find out shortly. They're still fighting behind. Bennett, can he get below Kraus? No, he cannot. It will be the low line for Kraus. It will be the long way around for Bennett, who has a nose in front as we enter into turn 3. This has been the wildest race in 2021, but the ButtKicker US 500 comes down to a 3-wide photo finish, and at the line, Adam Blocker makes it 8 wins in 14 races. He is looking for 4 consecutive titles, and Adam Blocker shows why he is the Lionheart King in a firework-filled ButtKicker US 500. What a race, and heartbreak for Malechka. But on the other side of the coin, Justin Prince, Adam Blocker stole the race at the closing stages.
He just played this perfectly. He played it absolutely perfectly, guys, Arjuna, because he waited for the run through 3 and 4, knowing if he did too early down the front straightaway, he might not have been able to complete the pass to the bottom side through 1 and 2. Waited all the way until he made that move, and Kraus was so busy trying to pay attention to Henry Bennett, he didn't have any time to react to Adam Blocker. And for Blocker, my goodness, you can see why he's considered one of the greatest in this series' history.
And you know what? We're not going to take a look at the race results until we take a look at those final 4 miles. We'll cue up the replay. Let's start with heartbreak for Robert Malechka, who limps across the line in 10th. Actually, let's take one more look at this before we look at that final drag to the end, because Lorenzo, it was such a promising race for Malechka. He had dominated points of this race. It all came to blows here. I don't think there was contact with Phil Kraus. I wonder if just maybe a small bump. Oh no, there might have been a slightest of contact right there.
There was a slight contact from the front left Kraus and the right rear of Malechka right there, and that one set the car of Malechka into the wall. Fortunate from the factory back car. That could have had the chance of having our second back-to-back pole winner within these Triple Crown events, but that is unfortunate. Still got a top 10 result never the end, but it's a better top 10 result for Malechka. But look at this final lap. This is right down insane.
Justin, can you argue that this wasn't the best race of the season so far?
It's very hard to argue against it, to say the very least. It had it all. Major incidents, major points implications, major strategy calls, and in the end, a crazy wild finish once everyone got the green light on fuel. You seen the checkup from Blocker down the front straightaway. He knew that wasn't the right move. He seen that Kraus and Bennett were so busy with each other, he can just pick a line, wait for the opportunity for Kraus to try and go on the defensive move on Bennett right here as he slid up the track, and just use the slipstream off the corner exit and the momentum to just zip on by. Perfectly timed, perfectly executed.
And the only time you can go to the apron is on the final lap. Blocker knows the rules. And in his quest for a 4th consecutive Lionheart IndyCar title, he dominates the final lap. The only lap that you need to lead is the one that Blocker crossed the line in front. Let's go ahead and take a look then at our Carnox race results. And look at the margin. 0.5 of a second separates the front 3, but it's Adam Blocker victorious in Michigan, Phil Kraus in 2nd, and Henry Bennett in 3rd. For Phil Kraus, 2nd Lionheart IndyCar Series race, and a 2nd consecutive 2nd place finish. He's just going to have to hope that Adam Blocker doesn't show up from Twin Ring Mochegi. Maybe Kraus will take his first IndyCar Series victory. Andrew Kinsella bounced back from some technical issues at the start to take 4th position, with Connor Harrington in the championship fight against Adam Blocker, unable to put the pressure on in a double points race. 17 positions gained for Joshua Chin up into 6th position, but remarkably, he is not the biggest mover of the day. Tony Schowen +9 to 7th, with Matt Houston, Adam Frazier both +11 to finish in 8th and 9th positions. 10th goes to Robert Malechka III. Heartbreak for the factory back driver. We know just how strong he is. He will bounce back from this one, I am sure, with plenty of races still to go to get his first IndyCar Series victory. Aaron Morgan is our biggest mover of the day. He's +19 in the 48 car to come across the line in 11th, with Barrett Rolfe, the first car 1 lap down, coming down onto pit road with 10 laps to go. Alexis Newsom and Jason Brophy also 1 lap down, along with Chris Fowler, a car that was running around at the front for points of this race, with Lionel Calisto 6 laps down, Luis Gonzalez Nunes 9 laps down after hitting the wall in the closing stages. Mike Rigney, AJ Musselman, Ryan Otis complete the top 20. Brian Beard, Mike Razmas 21st and 22nd. The graveyard of cars is quite lengthy in this one. We had 2 major incidents that took out 5+ cars. Illustrates just how close this pack might have been coming to the end. Stefan Larkamp, Michael O'Brien, Scott Holmes, Tyler Graf, James Grahula, Matt Taylor, Ken Hacker, and Brian Carey, all retirees. 250 laps. The fastest lap was set on lap number 70. Lionel Calisto in that Sector 5 machine, a 32.296. What a race. What a race that we had. Let's make our way down into HyperX Victory Lane and into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. And so let's make our way straight down to HyperX Victory Lane, where the Lionheart King is standing by. 1,800 miles, Adam, of driving to get back for this race. You were a bit patient at times, but you made your move at the line. You win the ButtKicker US 500.
Yeah, I don't quite think I deserved to win it, but I did. Yeah, the last 2 stints were crazy. The first one we were having to save so much, and the whole field was going so slow, like a second off the pace. It was really easy to make the number, and I got to a point where I could I pitted with 41 to go, which meant that I only had to save the first half of the stint, and then I could push hard. But then everyone else had the same idea, so I kind of got boxed in and couldn't really go anywhere. And I got lucky that Rob spun on the apron, and then Andrew had a huge save that he was really good to save, but that kind of allowed me to, that checked everybody up behind me, and that kind of allowed me to focus on Kraus and Henry. And then Phil he overpinched the entry to 3, and then was driving Henry up the track and gave me the space for the apron, and I guess I just stole it from him. So
you make it sound so simple, but I think the main thing I take away from what you just said there, Adam, is you don't think you deserve to win that, but I would argue you stayed patient, you knew the championship was on the line, and you made your move at the perfect time. You only have to lead 1 lap at the end of the day, and that's the one at the end, the one that takes you to the checkered flag. Knowing that this was double points, how important is this one? We mentioned it over the last couple of weeks. You'll be missing some of the upcoming races, the triple header that the NTT IndyCar Series will be having.
Yeah, the main thing, I was just honestly trying to finish around where Connor was to minimize points loss, because honestly this isn't one of my better tracks, just trying to minimize damage. And so to come out of it ahead by a decent bit in points is just a really big boost to that, and yeah, it's only just going to be good for the rest of the season basically.
Well, and what a run that we'll have to the end of the season. I'm pretty sure you'll miss Motegi, so I won't ask you about that race, but we've got Iowa, which I know you're a fan of. Short track racing in this IR18, always an interesting challenge. The Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Pocono, Chicagoland, Road America, Belle Isle, and Auto Club to round things off. I do have to ask you, what's your favorite track that we'll have on this closing stages of this 2021 season?
I quite like the Detroit track just because it rewards patience and everything, but honestly Road America is probably my best track of the ones remaining. I've won there tons of times and tons of leagues. It's probably one of my best tracks, so really just looking forward to that. Honestly, all of them I feel like I can win at, except for maybe like Chicagoland, but just trying to get through a couple of the rounds that I don't really like, and the rest of them, focus on doing what I've been doing, and should be in good shape at the end of the day.
Congratulations, Adam. 8 victories in 14 races. You are really stamping your mark in your quest for a 4th consecutive title.
Yeah, thanks. Just want to thank everybody on the team. We worked really well together on strategy and also just like on track. So yeah, just big shout out, and congrats to Henry on P3 and Andrew on P4. See you guys next time.
He's now won 2 of the Triple Crown races. Can he make it a 3rd one when we head to the Auto Club Speedway to round things off? Next up, the Appleton, Wisconsin native. It is Phil Kraus. And Phil, wow, another close race, another 2nd place finish to the Lionheart King, Adam Blocker. I think you're just hoping and waiting that he's going to be missing in action for some of the upcoming races so you can finally get that elusive victory.
Yeah, it'd be nice to not finish too, Adam. it feels like I finished the second to him. Most of the races I've done with him at this point. So, you know, just a lose-lose situation. I think out of turn 4, if I held it low, I was going to get beaten by Henry, and I was too focused on him to even notice that Adam had a huge head of steam. So I washed up trying to hurt Henry's momentum a little bit, and that just gave Adam perfect opportunity. Like, even if I went below the white line, he was still going to clear both of us, so it's rough.
Talk to us about this style of race, Phil, because it's one that we saw you go up and down through the field, and we saw many of the drivers go up and down through the field. Pack racing is always quite stressful for you guys in a long situation, a long race like this one. But when it comes down to a fuel mileage race, when that final caution came out, how nervous were you thinking about the fuel number that you had to hit?
The fuel number was definitely really aggressive. And if we didn't have anybody who was willing to lead the pack and was pretty much throwing the race away to get a 2-stop strategy done, or if they were a lap down or something like Jason was, because I know he ended up leading the pack for a bit, if someone on a 2-stop was able to break away, they probably would have been able to win it, but because we would have had to crawl around if we all wanted to do the 1-stop, but luckily we were able to hang on to Jason, and that really played into the 1-stop pretty well.
Well, 2 races, Phil, 2 second places. I mean, it's a pretty nice start to your Lionheart IndyCar Series career. Interesting run of tracks coming up. I'm sure you're going to enjoy them. I do have to ask, road courses or ovals, which one do you kind of prefer? Because that's the great thing about American Open wheel racing, right? You have to master both, and, you know, within each discipline, there are sub-disciplines. For example, purpose-built road tracks versus the street courses.
I mean, if I had to tier them, I'd probably go road course, short oval, big oval, but I've never really been a huge fan of the big ovals. I think I've said that to you a few times, but yeah, definitely road courses are my forte in this car.
Well, then you'll be looking to the trip at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, trip to your home state of Road America and Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, and then Belle Isle for potential chances there, and I'm sure Belle Isle is going to be a very fascinating race. Congratulations, Phil. I know you sound a little disappointed, but 2 consecutive second-place finishes in a league like this, it's not something to be disappointed about. I'm sure you'll get that victory soon enough.
Yeah, big thanks to Private Label, Ethica, and everyone else, and yeah, hopefully one of these next few races we'll be able to do one better, because second place stinks when you're that close.
It was a photo finish between the two of them, just 300th at the line. One more interview on our podium, and it's the Brit Henry Bennett, his, I believe, 3rd or 4th podium on the season, Henry, and well, I mean, it's always a lottery coming to the line in a race like this. Just didn't play out in your favor, but ultimately, a good day for you in the Teams Championship, along with Andrew Kinsella.
Yeah, I mean, overall, got to be happy with the race. This kind of racing so close and for so long, you've always got to be happy just to make it to the finish, and top 10 or top 5 is a bonus. So 3rd is good, but from where I was with like 20, 10 to go, even 5 to go, you know, I was looking for the win. But yeah, it's all about tactics, and my aim on the last lap, get a run out of 1 and 2, and then I could get a decent overlap with Phil in 3 and 4, and then hold him down. You know, but that would mean passing him would mean he has to hold his line. But you know, as we saw, he moved up the track and left it open for Adam to swoop in. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, happy with the podium.
He told us he didn't even know Adam was coming. He was so focused on trying to mitigate your run and your challenge for victory there. One thing I do have to ask you, Henry, is that you're obviously a Brit. Relatively late night for you. It's midnight in your neck of the woods, but by comparison to our weekday races, this must feel like a treat, not having to wake up at an unforeseen, like, ungodly hour, you know, keep yourself up and then race until the early hours in the morning. You must still be pretty tired, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is early for me for Lionheart, but even so, I did have a little nap before the race just to make sure I had my batteries fully recharged. But yeah, pretty tired after how many hours? 3 hours of racing almost. Pretty tired, and you know, even with all that fuel saving, you have to really concentrate the entire time. So you can't really race tired. And yeah, maybe that helped towards my result, having the earlier start and being slightly more alert than I usually am.
Well, one thing that this result does definitely help you with, Henry, is to kind of build up a bit of an advantage over at least Ryan Otis in that battle for 3rd in the championship. Your teammate Kinsella finishing right behind you is going to mean that you're not going to scamper away from him too far. But in a rookie campaign where you're looking pretty comfortable in that rookie championship, trying to secure 3rd, I'm sure, must be a big challenge for you here.
It is. It's incredibly close, and with the way the scoring is in this in the league, it's very hard to get a big leap in points unless you're winning. And there's only a couple of guys that have been winning this season. So yeah, it's going to be incredibly close, and yeah, looking forward to the fight for the rest of the season.
You just have to tell Adam to take a couple of weeks off and let you guys have some victories. I think that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, I think he might have some weeks off coming up, but that'll mean I'll have to raise my game to beat the other guys that finish up front.
Looking forward then to seeing you next time when we go short track racing from Iowa.
Thanks, guys.
So that was the Brit Henry Bennett. We've now got Andrew Kinsella standing by, and we don't usually do the fourth place interviews, but a RaceSpot TV colleague, I would just like to hear from his perspective what he thought about the race, given that he's also the setup builder. Andrew, interesting race for you there. Some technical issues made it difficult for you at the start, involved, I think, in causing part of the first caution that we had, but bounced back from that. Fourth place might be a little disappointed from your perspective, because I did see you get a little bit loose coming through turns 1 and 2 in those closing couple of laps.
Yeah, so first of all, apologies to everyone for the first caution. I don't know exactly what happened behind me, but I saw that my cue bar had gone crazy, and I tried to stay up and out of everyone's way, but I don't think that my message got through there, unfortunately, and then there was a big checkup because of it, so definitely not intentional, so apologies for that one. But after that, my bar and everyone else, at least on my end, was fine, and I had some really close battles all through the field. I was up near the front the entire time, and then, yeah, it was just one of those things. When Kraus and Malechka touched there, I got a big run on the inside, and basically when Kraus came down, I had to brush the brakes, and as soon as I brushed the brakes, it got the back end loose, because I basically hit a bump just as I hit the brakes, so I just had to chase the car back up the track, and fortunately was able to recover to fourth. But it's a shame, because I definitely think that we could have had a shot there with Phil and Henry for the win if I hadn't had that happen. But it is what it is in this type of racing. Sometimes just two cars trying to go for the same spot, and fortunately we both made it through to the other side.
One more question for you, Andrew, and it's more of a setup philosophy question, since you're the man behind setups here in the Lionheart Racing Series. Is there a way, without making the track temperature, scorching, to have non-pack racing here at Michigan? Because it just seems that the way the track is designed in an open-wheel car, it's always going to produce this kind of racing that's always very stressful for the drivers.
Not really with the current tire and aero model, unfortunately. So we had tire wear. I was down, I think, 16% on my right front at one point. So if I take any more downforce out of the car, it'll just burn off the right front before the end of the stint. So I was very much sort of limited with what I could do in terms of getting the cars strung out any more than we did. So overall, though, I think it was a really clean, entertaining race. It must have been excellent to watch, although I'm not sure how much fun it was commentating the 50 or so laps we were going around in Fuel Map 5 there. But the end sure as heck made up for that. So
I can tell you it was fun. We enjoyed it. Potentially the best race in 2021. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time from Iowa.
Thanks, Arjuna.
What a race that was, guys. And Justin, I think it's an understatement to say the best race of the season. I can't now wait until Auto Club. Very similar track to this. That will be our season finale. Once more, Triple Crown race. Double points on the line. Let's see what championship fights are brewing from that one. But in a couple of weeks' time, we'll go to the land of the rising sun and twin ring Motegi before one more race 7 days after that in the month of September in the cornfields of Iowa. What a schedule we've got coming up for us. Couple of road courses, couple of different types of speedways. Adam Blocker, 8 wins out of 14. He is looking odds on to take that 4th consecutive title.
He can put one hand on the trophy just about with how he performed today, even when you factor in the drops, because of it being a Triple Crown event here at Michigan today. He needed to score strong points to be able to factor that in for the potential of drops. Not only did he do that, he took home the checker flag in very stunningly fashion by playing things out perfectly. In our words, Blocker is doing what he needs to do if he wants to win another championship. It's going to be difficult to beat him, I think, the rest of the way out, even with missed races now.
And of course, yeah, he's got that triple header in the NTT IndyCar Series coming up. At least I think Twin Ring Motegi will be missed with his trackside duties. Lorenzo, how about you? Great to have a three-man booth for this one, and I think partially saved our voices there because, well, what an exciting finish that one was when the cars got let loose once they knew they had saved enough fuel. Incredible. Fireworks, and really, sometimes I don't like pack racing. It stresses me out as much as I think the drivers in the cars themselves, but when it works out, when we get the drivers being as clean as they were here, incredible. And for Robert Malechka, he's probably just so disappointed things didn't work out his way.
It doesn't work out his way. It's unfortunate, but it's racing, right? It's one of those things that it can change in the snap of your fingers, like you said. It's unfortunate, but at least got a top 10 result, which we got to see at the light at the end of the tunnel, at the end of things. But other than that, it's an understatement to say this was the race of the season, probably one of the best races I've commentated easily in Indy, because it was fireworks from the start to finish. I think the fuel mileage brought that extra factor into the race that made everything exciting. And Blocker, again, proving why he's one of the best, and I think is the only back-to-back multiple finisher here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. That's the second time he actually does that. So just an amazing result.
2 Triple Crown wins for him this season, in addition to his streak of 5 victories that we saw at one point. Well and truly writing himself into the Lionheart history books. One more question before we start to say goodbye here, JP, is, well, we've had some fun road races. I think that's how you can put it. Mid-Ohio was pretty fun. Silverstone was great until the last corner on the last lap. And, well, Phillip Island, I always love going there in this IR18. Just thinking now about what lies ahead. The series goes from strength to strength. The likes of Phil Krause coming into the mix really is going to shake things up, especially when we think about the team standings. He's not fighting with his private label Team Hype teammates to increase their points totals. The very least, what he will do is just reduce the amount of points that potentially Adrenaline Motorsports Red can take.
Yeah, that's a good point in that regard, because for Philip Krause, the main way to think about it is he's not racing for points necessarily, he's racing for victories. If he can help his teammates along the way, that's a good positive. But if you see Krause in a position to try and come away with a victory like we've seen today, he's going to go for it. He's not thinking about that factor of the championship fight. He wants to win races. And he almost came away with that today in just his second start of the campaign. It was a thrower. With the road courses, I think it's going to be definitely entertaining in the final couple ones on the campaign to see how everything plays out, because we've seen private label Team Hype in recent events for the road courses are willing to take risks. Don't be surprised to see that happen, especially with how tight the team standings could be after today.
Blocker, with this victory, has put himself in position to win the Triple Crown. We'll have to wait till December to see that. He's also won $75 and another ButtKicker to add to his collection that I'm losing track of how many he's won already. Before we say goodbye, we'd like to thank the partners at the Lionheart Racing Series. So many people helped make this happen, including the sponsor of today's race. ButtKicker. For sim racers, the ButtKicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders.
The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders.
Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing channel.
And it's not just them, but so many others that help make this all possible. Learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series by heading to lionheartracingseries.com, where you can also join the series Discord to stay up to date with the virtual paddock and the latest comings and goings from all the drivers. More information on the 3 competitions put on by the Lionheart sanctioned body are also available on the website. Stay involved with them across of social media as well. ESTV has you covered for your esports needs. Follow them on social media for all things esports, while RaceBot TV has everything sim racing. Follow us across of social media. Subscribe to us on YouTube by hitting that red bell and the red button and the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series that we get to cover. What a race we had here today. An instant classic in the Lionheart IndyCar series. For my co-commentators, Lorenzo Bonder, for Justin Prince, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time from Twin Ring Motegi for more Lionheart IndyCar series action. But for now, it is the Lionheart King on top here in Michigan.